Lessons in Love is the longest visual novel ever made. I read through about 5% of it, and it ruined my life. What is a visual novel?
I don't know.
Well, it's basically a video game, but with only text and background art and character sprites, used as a way to tell a text story, novel, visually. Hence, visual novel. They are a very simple and accessible medium, and as such, there are thousands and thousands of visual novels out there, and it's a lot more productive to think of them not as just video games, but rather as a creative medium in their own right, in the same vein as things like, movies, TV shows, books, and video games, because this way it becomes a lot more clear what makes them distinct as a medium. The first big distinction is their age, being a much younger medium, only originating in Japan in the 1980s, and second, and this is the big one, is their utility. Because almost from the very beginning, visual novels have existed for one very specific purpose: to let you talk to and date cute anime girls. Keyword almost. The very first visual novels were generally adventure games and murder mysteries, but once developers started publishing the romance stories and dating sims, they basically took over the entire medium. As such, it shouldn't be surprising that today, anime dating sims are the most popular kind of visual novel. And at this point, they're arguably baked into the medium's DNA. I mean, when you search for visual novels on Steam or Google, they are overwhelmingly romance-focused games with an anime art style. And even for VNs that are more focused on other genres like horror, mystery, sci-fi, or historical fiction, it's not uncommon for them to still center romantic or sexual relationships, which made it really easy for people to notice the pattern and start to parody and deconstruct visual novels, and push the medium to its limits, almost to the point that these more satirical and higher concept takes on visual novels are now just as popular and expected as their normal counterparts. Take Doki Doki Literature Club, for example, arguably one of the most famous and subversive visual novels ever made. The premise is deceptively simple. You, the protagonist, join the literature club at your school, led by Monica, and get to write poems to try and impress and win the heart of your pick of 3 cute anime girls: Sayori, your cheerful childhood friend; Yuri, the shy bookworm with a love of the macabre; and Natsuki, the tsundere that loves cupcakes. Monica is also there. She's the compassionate and hardworking leader of the literature club, and notably, not a romanceable option. The gameplay loop is similarly simple, with you getting to pick from a collection of words to make a poem, and then try to impress the other members of the club with your poem the next day. However, as the game goes on, Sayori starts to act a bit off. At first, she was excited that you'd finally joined Literature Club, but there's something unsaid beneath her happy and cheerful demeanor. Before long, it's revealed that Sayori is suffering from some seriously debilitating depression, and while the MC vows to be there for her, her mental state just seems to get worse and worse, eventually culminating in the most traumatizing and iconic moment of any visual novel.
Sayori? Wake up, dummy! There's no response. I really didn't want to have to enter her room like this. Isn't it kind of a breach of privacy? But she really leaves me no choice. I gently open the door. Oh my god!
What the fuck?
And thus, the entire tone and genre of the game have been irreparably shifted. It turns out Monica, the club leader, is jealous that she's not part of the dateable options and wants the MC, the player, all to herself. So, she hacks the literal code of the game, edits the character's attributes to make them systematically crazy and kill themselves, before eventually just deleting everything, leaving her as the only option for the player. Just Monica. The game ends with you literally having to go into the game's directory and manually deleting her character file, as it's the only way to save Sayori and the rest of the girls. This visual novel, created by Dan Salvato in late 2017, collectively traumatized the entire internet, and not only made everyone obsessed with just Monica and the rest of the girls, but it also changed the medium of visual novels forever. While meta-horror visual novels were made before ddlc, thanks to the game's free release and huge popularity in the West, it roped in an entire new audience of people who had never played visual novels before, and as such, people's expectations shifted. Nowadays, people are primed to look out for this sort of thing in their visual novels and cutesy anime stories, and ddlc paved the way for games like My Side, Cooking Companions, Needy Streamer Overload, and even something like Kanito Pets. And now, for the rest of time, whenever players are presented with a visual novel or cutesy dating sim, some small part of them will always be waiting for the game to become self-aware and show them unimaginable horrors. Simply put, the genre of visual novels and anime dating sims are so formulaic that they lend themselves perfectly to being subverted, and Doki Doki Literature Club proved this fact, and in doing so, it kind of raised the bar for these kinds of meta-horror games, because now every game that follows suit inherits a burden of proof. Yes, ddlc was a well-written game with genuinely likable characters, but could the story hold up on its own without those meta-horror elements if it released today? Would the game have the cultural impact it had if it didn't? The fact is, it's just not necessarily novel anymore to make a game and then reveal at the end that one of the characters is self-aware or that the game is evil and wants to kill you and or your PC. You can't just slap meta-horror and self-awareness onto any old premise or concept and call it subversive. You have to earn it. So when I tell you that the subject of today's video is exactly that kind of game, an anime harem dating sim with a self-aware twist, you may think you already know what's in store here. But trust me, you don't. Lessons in Love, first released in 2020 by solo developer Selebus, has you play as Sensei, a perverted isekai protagonist who wakes up in the body of a teacher, the only male teacher in an all-girls school in a world where 99% of the male population is gone, with a class full of female students that love him just a little too much. And now Sensei must make the most of his new life in the town of Kumonmi by creating a harem out of his female students. You are probably already about to click off the video just on hearing that premise alone, but I promise you, nothing here is what it seems. Lessons in Love is chock full of secrets, Easter eggs, mysteries, fourth wall breaks, an entire massive ARG, and some of the most sophisticated psychological horror I have ever encountered in the medium. This work is profoundly self-aware about what it actually is, and it has a lot to say about it and the people who choose to play it. And to top it all off, Lessons in Love happens to be the single longest visual novel ever made. According to Selebus, the game sits comfortably at over 3 million words, making it longer than the entire Harry Potter franchise and longer than the entirety of Homestuck, including the Vivziepop pilot, minus any swear words. And it's only going to get longer because it's apparently only partway through its estimated 10-year development cycle. With all these factors considered, you'd probably assume this visual novel is extremely popular and often discussed alongside some of the medium's biggest hits. So why have I never heard of it? And why does it seem like no one is talking about it? There is essentially zero coverage of this game online at time of recording. The biggest YouTube video I could find about the game had around 30,000 views, and the rest of the videos barely break 5-digit view counts. This game is in almost complete obscurity, and the same applies to content about the game on other platforms like TikTok and Reddit. But while the online presence for this game is minimal, it certainly isn't non-existent. People do play this game, and the ones who do it a lot. Since its inception, Lessons in Love has maintained a devoted cult-like following, with dozens to hundreds of people pledging monthly to financially support the game's creator Selebus, to the point where he was apparently able to quit his day job to work on the game full-time. So, how did I hear about the game then? And why am I talking about it today? Well, the reason is it was recommended to me on a previous video essay I made about another messed up visual novel, The Song of Saya, aka Saya no Uta, one of the greatest works of cosmic horror ever written. A beautiful and demented story that depicts and romanticizes the absolute worst of humanity. It's a story that I talked about and critiqued extensively in my video essay about the game, a game that I gave the title of the most disturbing visual novel ever made. That description brought the ire of many people in the visual novel and eroge community, citing and recommending I cover other way more fucked up visual novels: Maggot Bait, Euphoria, Black Souls, Mogeko Castle. Don't look any of these up, by the way. And while I did consider making videos about them, I ultimately decided against it. Obviously, I don't really want to subject myself to those horrors, but beyond that, I just don't think I'd have much to say about them, especially after my Sai no Uta video. My fear with covering these other messed up visual novels that I'd basically end up saying, yeah, it's messed up, or the story's good but it's still bad, over and over and over again. I'd just be repeating a lot of the points I made in the other video. But Lessons in Love? Well, that's a completely different story. Literally, yes, but this game is such an enigma that immediately stood out to me as different, for all the reasons I mentioned above. It's a visual novel that no one is talking about, despite it, again, being the longest visual novel ever made. In addition to all the other crazy shit surrounding it, the little discourse that there is surrounding the game, again at time of recording, posits the community as extremely protective of the game and its plethora of puzzles and secrets, demanding that you must play the 3 million plus word game if you want to know anything about it. People have called the developer pretentious and claim the game only existed to be pure fan service. All the while, tons of people are still funding the game through Subscribestar. Why Subscribestar? It got banned off of Patreon! I could go on, but safe to say, my curiosity has been piqued. So why? Why is no one talking about it? What is Lessons in Love, and what's the deal with the longest visual novel ever made? That's what I'm here to find out. But before we go any further, I want to establish exactly what I want to find out about this game, what questions I want to answer, and, most importantly, the scope of this review. I did not read all 3 million plus words. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I only got through around 5% of the game, not the whole way through and certainly not even close. And getting to the point that I got to in the game took me days. I want to be fully transparent that I did not finish Lessons in Love, and that this review is not a comprehensive one. And yet, in the relatively short time from my experience this game, it changed me forever. With how the fandom of this game is, a lot of people are inevitably going to say that I missed out on a ton of important context what I'm about to see, with the story and the cutscenes and characters. But I think that there's value in my fresh and limited perspective of the game, because I'm going to be showing you what the average person would most likely experience at the very start of the game, before either noping out or truly getting hooked. Do not mistake this video for a comprehensive review or true deep dive into Lessons in Love. I am barely scratching the surface here, which should show you just how impactful this game is, even at the tip of the iceberg. So, Doki Doki Literature Club raised the bar for these kinds of games, the self-aware deconstructionist visual novel, proving that such a premise can be turned into something meaningful. So what I want to know is, does Lessons in Love clear that bar? Does this game genuinely exist to deconstruct and critique its own disgusting premise, or is all that self-awareness just a sophisticated excuse to depict the exact same thing it's supposedly critiquing? Can a game really transcend a premise this problematic through self-awareness and complexity? What does it say about a community that's willing to fund this game for 5+ years while keeping it almost completely underground? Are the people still reading year after year actually enjoying it, or are they trapped by sunk cost? And how has basically no one heard of the longest visual novel ever made? Is this a genuine hidden gem you have to be in the know for, or has it been left in the dark for good reason? But most importantly, what does it mean to willingly walk into problematic content in search of greater meaning? Well, I guess there's only one way to find out. So join me as we jump all the way down into the strangest visual novel rabbit hole of all time. Welcome to Lessons in Love. Lessons in Love predictably begins with a slideshow of warnings about the nature of the content we're about to see. You get the standard stuff: game's not finished yet, don't play for under 18, flashing lights, audio required? What, are you about to get some FNAF 4 gameplay? But then we get an interesting content warning. This is a happy game, but just like in real life, horrible things might happen. If you are easily disturbed, proceed with caution. Face your fears! Okay, that sounds way too friendly. Even the intro to ddlc isn't that carefree, so surely it won't be that bad, right? upbeat, inspirational music swells as we're given a message from someone who is God, the creator of the game. For our purposes today, we're just going to call them the narrator, and here's what they have to say. There are several things in life I have accepted I will never understand. The first of which has been explained to me many times. It's the way floating dust particles manage to shimmer and glow when hit at the correct angle by light. How something invisible to the naked eye can be made visible by pure electromagnetic radiation. Or something like that. I've retained the information. I'd be foolish not to after how many times I've heard it, but I will never understand. The second thing is the romanticization of death, and how there are people who speak of it with such fervor that it often appears to bring them more joy and curiosity than the unwrapping of presents on Christmas morning. The third thing is you, trapped in the dark, suspended somewhere between life and death, with eyes swollen shut so dramatically that you can't even see the dust I've taken the liberty of illuminating for you. I want you to be just as confused as me, you know? It's lonely here. It's lonely having no one to talk to, no one to submerge myself in uncertainties with. It's just me, the dust, and the incessant circling of the dream that is the idea that I will one day no longer be able to share these little thoughts like these with anyone. The narrator mentions how they dislike poetry because of how much interpretation it takes to understand it, but that they do have one quote which they love. There is no beauty without some strangeness in its proportions. They say that they love this line and that one day you will come to love and understand it too. Then they hype up how special the place we're going to will be. A place with so much strangeness in its proportions that you'll be forced to understand how truly beautiful life can be, even in its darkest moments. The most important thing they have to tell us, their words, is this. Nothing is real. Not me, not you, not anyone you'll meet in the journey you start today. We're all just air. So how about we breathe together? It'll be fun. Go on. Expel your worries from the depths of your lungs and envelop yourself in happier days. Our narrator says that they love you. They're so happy you're finally here, and they send you off with gentle words of encouragement as we realize that we are standing on top of a building and about to jump. Welcome home. We see an obscured message encoded in base 64, which, when decoded, reads, Nothing falls but me. And then a lot just happened, and don't worry, we're going to come back to this, but for now, let's actually see what's in the game. Our story finally begins with our protagonist waking up in the body of another man. Pause. With no real memory of who he is, or who this person he just assumed the identity of is. His name is not given to us, but everyone just calls him Sensei, including his niece, Ami, the first character we're introduced to and the first actual thing we get to see in this game. Also, Ami is like weirdly close to her uncle, because of course she is. Sensei is a bit confused and disoriented, having just been isekai'd into this entirely unfamiliar world, and Ami kind of catches on to the fact that her uncle/teacher, Jesus Christ, is kind of freaking out for some reason. So taking charge of the situation and ever eager to help her uncle/teacher, Ami teaches him about the world and his place in it, oddly accepting of the fact that her uncle is seemingly going through some sort of memory loss. This is Kumonmi, a town just outside of Tokyo, in a world apparently ravaged by an alien space war. As such, 99% of the male population has been drafted, leaving very few men left on Earth. Sensei was not cooked, avoiding the draft because of his very important role in society as the only male teacher in a girls-only high school, because of course he is. I'm actually not sure if the name of the town has any actual meaning, so if any native Japanese speakers want to chime in, feel free. But yeah, if it's not obvious, it immediately feels like this entire world has been carefully constructed to create the perfect perverted fantasy scenario for this one guy to have a harem of Japanese schoolgirls. That's because it is. We'll get back to that. Sensei can also ask about Ami's parents, but she doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe this war is more serious than we thought it was. Anyway, aside from learning a bit about the town and the war, we can also ask about the students that Sensei teaches. Ami brings up two of her friends, Ayan and Maya, who Sensei apparently knows because they come over all the time. But for learning about the rest of Sensei's students, she mentions that Sensei has some sort of secret book that he keeps in his room that he uses to document exactly this kind of information. The two start to head home, but Ami wants to go say hello to her friend and Sensei student, Maya, who happens to be sitting right over there. When Sensei meets Maya for the first time, his immediate thought is, if I'm remembering correctly, this is one of the girls that Ami claims I've known for years. Hopefully that means I've already got some decent footing with her and that my romantic options aren't solely limited to an extremely clingy family member. Romantic oh, wow, okay, so we're not even being subtle about it. This guy's a fucking creep. The two say hello to Maya, who immediately locks eyes with Sensei for an uncomfortably long time. Sorry, who did you say you were again? He responds, Sensei? Is that so? Yes? Kind of a weird reaction. Like she mentioned before, Maya says that Ayan and Maya will be staying over tonight, and apparently Maya really does not like Sensei, which, hey, you know, you and me both, Maya. I think this is already my favorite character. After saying goodbye to Maya, the two head home. Along the way, Sensei ponders his new existence, thinking about how this world feels almost too convenient for his desires, and that he's glad that all the girls aren't immediately trying to get with him, since he wants something to chase after. Wow, the writing is not subtle about this at all. Jesus Christ. If it's not clear, this game wants you to understand that Sensei is a fucking creep. Once Sensei gets home, he finds the secret book that Ami mentioned earlier, and what information is stored inside. The book includes photos of each of the students in Sensei's class, their names, and some brief information about who they are and their personalities and relationships with each other. Setting aside the fact that this is all so fucked up on so many levels, this particular detail is really eerie to me. This is probably a stretch, but something weirdly similar happens in Deltarune. In that game, you take over the body and life of the human Chris, making them into the game's protagonist. You basically just show up in the middle of their life and pick up where they left off. But apparently, this is something that they've prepared for, as there is a cage in their room where they keep the soul, aka you, when they don't want you in control. The cage has a lot of really weird and creepy implications, and this book is really similar. The journal is, well, really convenient. Sure, it could exist for totally innocent reasons, but the fact is, it has the literal exact information that the teacher would need to know if they ended up, you know, losing all of their memories. Almost like someone knew this was going to happen. After this, Sensei goes to bed, marking the end of day 1. We again speak with the narrator, who informs that Ami's affection has increased by 1 point, and that affection points are used to unlock story events and progression. Paraphrasing the tutorial given here, affection points can be gained through interacting with main story events or spending time with the girls, and some events are locked into progress with certain characters. You can view your progress through each hero on the menus, and track your progress with special events and replay them in their respective menus. The narrator says, "This will come in handy when I start showing you how much I hate you." Huh? Huh? Hey, Selebus, Mr. Selebus, what's that mean? What does that mean, man? Are we good? Are we chill? Then the narrator says, "Please accept this next scene as a token of my gratitude for spending time with me here." What? What? And then, well, it happens. A scene that the Lessons in Love community has dubbed BYN, for reasons I don't feel comfortable elaborating on, but should be kind of obvious. I'm not going to visually show what happens in this scene or describe it in any graphic detail, but the gist of it is that Ami, in a surreal and absurdly horrific sequence, her uncle. The visuals almost entirely consist of the camera locked onto Ami's crazed expression, the two characters teleporting around to random locations before Ami says, "Close your eyes and you'll see where we really are." And it cuts to this. What? You don't know what this is? What are you, stupid? Everyone knows what's going on in this scene. You've got the steak PNG stretched out to cover the entire top of the screen, cute puppy, the 3 dancing dudes, and to top it all off, this wonderful stock photo of a delicious egg. It's just, I don't even know. This is such a mindfuck, and it comes completely out of nowhere, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. Sensei suffers some sort of mutilation. The room is literally flooded with blood. At one point, Ami's head falls off before being reattached like nothing happened. And all of this plays out while cheerful anime music plays in the background. The descriptions and narration so over the top that it's impossible to take it seriously, but not to the point where I can write this scene off as not being for some sort of erotic intent. I hope it's not. God, that stupid fucking egg PNG. I swear to God, if this game has eggs as one of its major, motifs and this is where it's introduced, I'm gonna be pissed. But regardless, just as quickly as it started, it ends. All of that was just a weird dream. And thus, day 2 begins. Okay, so a lot just happened, obviously. And I am a little worried that pausing to analyze what's amounted to only 20 minutes of gameplay might be doing too much too soon, but even with that in mind, this game does a lot of very deliberate and insidious things right off the bat that demonstrate exactly what kind of audience this game is trying to build and cultivate, and exactly what the game thinks of you for playing it. To begin, we just got filtered. What I mean is, the game intentionally threw a spike-covered curveball directly into the player's eyeballs, and not just because of that dream sequence. The game filters out players in 3 very distinct places. Anyone who picked up the game that just wanted a normal dating sim or visual novel is going to be totally thrown off by the weirdly verbose and profound dialogue at the start of the game. Anyone who really isn't interested in playing Epstein Island Simulator would instantly click off at the realization that the protagonist is a major predator, thrust into a world that's specifically crafted to cater to a predator's sick desires. And lastly, any gooner or goonette who only picked up the game because they thought it would be a creepy dating sim is going to be immediately turned off, no pun intended, by the absurdly bloody stock image filled sex scene. So, who's left over? Well, if you decide to stick through that part of the game, you're a lot more likely to be the kind of person who is willing to endure really weird and fucked up content. Either because you yourself are weird and fucked up, or because you think it will be worth it in the end to see if something greater is going on here, something deeper. And or you could simply be curious enough, or foolish enough, to want to see where this goes. And none of this reads as emergent to me. I think the dev knows exactly what kind of people would make it this far, and that is the kind of person the narrator is speaking to directly in the game's opening. The narrator, based on the intro narration of the game, is lonely. Like you, they are trapped in a liminal space between life and death, surrounded by dust. The player has their eyes closed so tightly that they can't see the supposedly beautiful thing they have in store for them. The protagonist, us, are standing on top of a building, about to jump off. They are committing suicide, romanticizing death, as it were. And the narrator is goading them into jumping, into taking their own life, in order to show them the strange and beautiful world that they have in store for us. But it's not a world for just any old person. No, it's a place meant for only those who are willing to stand on the edge of oblivion and jump into the abyss, no matter the horrors that await them. And then there's the world itself we end up in, Kuman-mi. Sensei awakens in a body that is not his, with a convenient journal that tells him everything he needs to know about the students he's now responsible for. Students he's apparently very attracted to. The world is in the middle of a space war that's conveniently gotten rid of 99% of men, leaving him in the perfect position for a harem scenario. And Sensei knows how fucked up this is, recognizing how convenient the world is to his desires. Sensei, and by extension the game, knows what this is. It's not trying to hide it. It's like it's daring you to keep playing anyway. Right off the bat, we are given a deceptively simple tutorial, telling us about the standard dating sim mechanics and general functions of the game and its progression, yet undercut with that foreboding wording. This will come in handy when I start showing you how much I hate you. This might seem like some sinister fourth wall breaking shenanigans, which, to be clear, absolutely is framed that way, but that's not the main point being made here. See, this game is infamously complicated and difficult to navigate. Even among dedicated fans of the game, there are well over 20 characters, each with their own special events, many that are unlocked with specific conditions, making it possible to permanently lock yourself out of certain events if you aren't being extremely careful. And this is why the game has a dedicated subreddit made specifically for hints, a wiki with over 1,400 pages, and a Discord server that actively discourages people from cheating. This game has cultivated a community that wants you to earn your progress. People have sunk 50, 60, 80, 100 plus hours into this visual novel, And it seems like this is part of the reason why. The hate that the narrator is talking about is just the mechanical difficulty, the time investment. This game is stupidly difficult to progress through, and by the time you've consulted wikis and asked the community for advice and hints before you realized it, you're already deeply invested in the world of Lessons in Love. And suddenly, the tonal dissonance of the narrator starts to make a bit more sense. They say how much they love us and are happy we're here because they want us to stay, and then they're going to show us how much they hate us by making it so difficult to progress that you won't be able to leave without feeling like you've wasted your time. The bottom line is, it seems like Lessons in Love is trying to tell us exactly what it is. It is openly hostile, gleefully manipulative, and fully expects you to engage with the dating sim mechanics in spite of the fucked up predatory scenario. And here, it feels like the game is priming the player to ask themselves if the horror is the point of the story or an excuse for it. It's not trying to hide what it is. It's openly telling you this is a fucked up scenario, making it clear that if you choose to continue despite knowing that, well, that's on you, and you can't blame the game for what happens next. If you're curious enough, you will see it through. You'll build those affection points, unlock events, and play out this demented scenario because you believe that, in the end, it'll be worth it, that it'll mean something. It filtered out the normies, grabbed the ones who might be willing to see something like this through to the end, and is going to keep you trapped within its complex web. And, well, that includes me. Day 2, compared to the literal and figurative nightmare of the previous day, is surprisingly calm. Normal, even. At least as normal as a student-teacher harem dating sim can be. Sensei wakes up to the relief that he is still in this world, and that nothing has really changed since yesterday. Though his awareness hasn't exactly increased very much at all, as Sensei is shown to be comedically unaware of the nature of her uncle's existence, chalking it up to his weird memory issues. So far, the game has consistently characterized Sensei as a predator who is happily going to take full advantage of the conveniences of this world to get exactly what he wants. And that continues when he finally makes it to the classroom, where we get to meet the rest of the students. I'll quickly go through who they are. Ami is Sensei's niece and is obsessed with him. Ayen is Ami's friend, who is obscenely wealthy and is also obsessed with Sensei. Makoto is the class president and bookworm that actually takes school seriously, who is also obsessed. Yumi is the delinquent bully girl. Chika is the popular Gyaru girl who's friends with everyone. Sana is extremely shy and quiet. Futaba is also shy, but mainly because of her self-confidence issues about her weight. She's also a writer. Miku is a really stupid tomboy who loves sports and is like really, really stupid. And lastly, Maya, who is friends with Ayen and Ami and hates Sensei for some reason. Notably, she is one of the only girls that Sensei doesn't really know that much about. Oh, and Rin exists too, I guess. She's like autistic and gay, I think. I genuinely forgot she existed like 4 times writing the script. She kind of feels like a Vivzy Pop character. Just to be clear, since I don't want any diehard fans of these characters to murder me in my sleep, this is just what the characters seem like on the offset. A huge part of why people keep coming back to this game is because of these characters. And these are far from the only characters in Lessons in Love, and these are far from apt descriptions of them. Their personalities and backstories in relationship with each other and Sensei will obviously be expanded on later in the game, and the relationship that the girls have with Sensei and one another take up a substantial part of the content of the game as a whole. So just bear in mind that my opinion of them is informed by my relatively limited time with Lessons in Love. Anyway, this is where Sensei reveals his new devious teaching style that he's been cooking up. He is aware that he has to take his job as a teacher somewhat seriously so he doesn't get fired, or else, as he puts it, many doors will close for him, meaning no harem. And so his new teaching method is that he basically gets to sit on his ass all day and do nothing while letting the students view him as their friend. AKA, the game allows you to skip over the fact that you're these girls' teacher and have a responsibility to, teach them, and instead justify skipping over the actual classroom time at school to enable your free time. This is also where we get some of the most important early characterization for Sensei. It's blatantly stated that Sensei is entirely self-aware of how perverted he is, and that he's going to, in his own words, need to assimilate if he's going to get what he wants, aka a harem of high school girls. His personality, at least when talking to the girls, is what I would describe as effortlessly cool and flirtatious 99% of the time. So basically your standard self-insert fantasy hentai protagonist. And even when questioned by the students about his approach, he basically says like, oh, you guys all work so hard at this school and you already have so many authority figures, so you should just be able to see me as your friend. And I'll just trust you all to study on your own. This guy is such a fucking sleazebag, and this game does not hide it. But that was already obvious based on his, dream last night and self-admitted fantasies about these girls. Anyways, after class ends, we get a scripted event where Sensei gives a shoulder massage to Makoto and then gives the house key to Ami. After that, he monologues about he'll eventually be able to seduce Ami, his own niece. Quote, "It's only a matter of time until she starts seeing me in the same light that I see her in. And when that time comes, I'm sure the lights will be so bright that we'll have nothing to do but blind one another. For now, I will continue to wait in the dark, lying in constant wait for the faint glow of 10 young girls to seep in through the cracks under the door to my heart. I want to see the dust light up." That last line is a direct callback to the dust motif established in the game's intro. Interesting. After that, Sensei goes home, where Ami is already there hanging out with Maya and Ayan again. We get a comedy cutscene with fourth wall breaking jokes from the narrator, which is... This scene is pretty funny, I gotta admit. Then, abruptly, Ayan goes to the bathroom where she walks in on a completely naked Sensei. She's traumatized. I mean, not really, because apparently every student in this class is not for their teacher, so her being traumatized here is just played off as a joke for her being embarrassed. But still, I find it kind of jarring that such a played straight sexual scene in this game is being shown here after what happened with the horrifying dream sequence of BYN. I was kind of expecting there to be basically no sexual content after that point, which is almost more surprising. I don't know what to expect with these kinds of moments going forward. As Sensei goes to sleep, he promises to make the most of his life, live for himself, and not care if others get hurt in the process. A voice in the back of his head reminds him none of this is real, a second voice fights against it, and a third carries him to sleep. No dream sequence this time, thank God. I really hope it stays like that. But anyway, as Sensei wakes up, it marks the start of day 3. And this is where we're introduced to the actual gameplay loop that we'll be spending seemingly the majority of our time interacting with. And it works like this. From now on, you can actually make choices. On weekends, you have 3 time periods, morning, afternoon, evening, and each day where you can go to certain areas where you'll most likely encounter one of your students, where you have an effortlessly flirty, casual, cute dating scene fucking talking to them, where you get to increase your affection points with them. It mentions that you only have one time to do this on school days, and that some students are only available at certain places at certain times. The narrator says, quote, "And if you get lost, remember that's exactly where I want you." The narrator also warns the player not to spam affection points with only one girl. You are encouraged to spread out your affection points evenly, reminding you that certain events are locked behind others. And lastly, the narrator says this, "Oh, but please remember this above everything else. This world was made for you. Please enjoy it to your heart's content." As I look back on my experience with day 2, I realized something perplexing. I didn't really bat an eye at what the game was showing me here. Yes, these scenes are disgusting, hentai fantasy shit right out from the depths of 4chan, but none of it was genuinely shocking or abhorrent or obviously really dumb like the dream sequence. Because after that, everything else looked normal by comparison, even depictions of obviously predatory behavior, and I can already feel the trap activating. The absurdity of the BYN dream sequence was the filter, and now that I've proven I'm willing to stay past that point, the game has made a shift towards completely serious played straight dating sim content, because it knows that everything after is going to seem mild by comparison, including the predatory nature of Sensei. The game thus far has made no effort to make the player sympathize with the position Sensei is in. He wanted this. He, assumedly, jumped off a building like we see in the intro. He willingly left behind everything in his past life with not a single thing tethering him back to that reality. He wakes up in this new world and starts immediately constructing a plan to take advantage of his position around these vulnerable teenagers, changing his official teaching style to accommodate it, his own niece not being left off the table, and he literally does not care if others get hurt in the process. Notice what he says after considering the prospect of seducing Ami. "It's only a matter of time until she starts seeing me in the same light that I see her in, and when that time comes, I'm sure the lights will be so bright that we'll have nothing to do but blind one another. For now, I will continue to wait in the dark, lying in constant wait for the faint glow of 10 young girls to seep in through the cracks under the door to my heart. I want to see the dust light up. Remember what the narrator said at the very beginning of the game? How he'll never understand the way floating particles of dust manage to shimmer and glow when hit the correct angle by light? How something invisible to the naked eye can be made visible by pure electromagnetic radiation? How he'll never truly understand? So far, dust is our main identifiable motif. Dust, something innocuous made up of dead skin cells and debris, barely visible to the naked eye, can become something beautiful when illuminated by the light. Sensei sees himself as the dust, something that's strange, dark, and lonely, and the girls in the game as the things, the light, that will make him beautiful. And it's not just some predatory appreciation for their beauty, but he is using their light to illuminate his own darkness. And when he says that the lights will be, quote, so bright that we'll have nothing left to do but blind one another, blinding, that's damage. He's talking about mutual pain, mutual destruction, something that will come up again very soon. Because Sensei knows that he doesn't care what it takes, who he has to hurt. He's going to get what he wants. Sensei is a character who has no qualms about what he's doing, how wrong it is, and instead of being shameful or self-deprecating, he wraps up his desires in flowery, beautiful language. He knows exactly how wrong what he is doing, and he doesn't care. He's making poetry out of it. Day 1 was a filter, masquerading as absurdist fourth wall breaking horror. But Day 2 was just a dating sim. And with how Day 3 plays out, well, that might be even worse. Day 3, as mentioned, is when we start to get a glimpse of what the actual gameplay of Lessons in Love is going to look like going forward, allowing you to go places and interact with characters mostly freely. Ami has caught on to the fact that you're still kind of dealing with whatever memory loss, dementia thing you have going on, but easily writes it off because of how much she loves you, and how she's more than willing to help out her dear uncle with anything. However, after this relatively standard moment, things start to get very, very interesting. Sensei is trying to get a better grip on what a typical weekday looks like for him, as expected by asking Ami, to which she happily lists off a bunch of local places you, or the previous sensei, would typically visit, like the bar or the cafe. But also she mentions some places that sensei would not typically visit, like the mall or the shrine, a place where sensei has never gone to before and would have no reason to want to visit. After this interaction with Ami ends, we get to choose where we want to go for the day, but inexplicably, our only option is to visit the shrine. So we click it, because sure, why not? Sensei visits the shrine and has a bit of a monologue about religion before being interrupted by Maya. Now, by this point, we know who Maya is, right? She's one of Ami's friends, one of Sensei's students, and was just at his house the other day hanging out with her and Ian. So, upon encountering her, you'd probably expect a generic scene to play out where Sensei flirts with the student he happens to run into, and he does do that, but not before Maya makes it clear that she is not happy to see you, and that you are not welcome here. When Sensei asks why she seems irritated, she says, "Oh, give me a break. We both know you're not who you say you are." What? When he asks, confused, she says, "Oh, so you didn't just happen to wake up in that body and assume the role of someone entirely unfamiliar to you?" Wait. What? She knows? Maya mentions that she caught on to the fact that Sensei would never go to the shrine, just as Ami pointed out. She specifically asks if he's the real Sensei, then what's Ami's birthday? And Sensei can't answer. Though, interestingly, Maya also says that she supposes that she can't know for sure if the real Sensei would actually know her birthday. But still, Sensei continues to play dumb, refusing to admit the truth to Maya. For some reason, Sensei just can't bring himself to admit that she's right out loud. So, he says, just like in his previous life, he's going to lie through his teeth in hopes of persuading her. He tries to flirt, as is his default, but when called out on this, and being called out for being here in the first place, he defends himself by saying he didn't really have a choice, which catches Maya off guard. But Sensei explains that he ended up just sort of coming here on a whim, which is accurate. The only option that I had as the player was to go to the shrine, which both Maya and Sensei seem really confused about. They banter about spirits and religion for a bit before Sensei asks if Maya hates him so much, then why is she even talking to him right now? Why not just leave? What is she trying to tell him? And she answers, "There is an infinite amount of worlds out there, and an infinite amount of possibilities within each and every one of them. And with an infinite amount of people and souls waiting to be recycled, the contents of each one of those worlds are rapidly changing. They spin together, but in different directions. Sometimes they spin so fast that parts of them combine. With that in mind, each one of those potential worlds and the never-ending expanding list of them is like a cocktail of misfortune and agony, with an occasional splash of joy and mint. Somehow or another, you wound up here, at the same shrine as me, in the same town as me. Feigning ignorance and pretending that you've been here all along is a slap in the face to whatever force or forces brought you here before me. If you believe that force to be coincidence, then coincidence is your god. If you believe it to be some sort of supernatural entity, that is your god. But no matter what god you choose or what story you decide on, you must remember first and foremost that none of it matters at all." What? Sensei naturally asks if Maya hates him so much, then why bother telling him any of this? Maya basically says that now that Sensei understands how the world works, that he can basically just mostly ignore it, and says that Sensei shouldn't worry about these greater cosmic forces and just enjoy himself. Enjoy this new life as a complete pervert in Kumonmi. That Sensei would be, in her words, an absolute moron not to make the most of his new life here. Which Sensei follows up, "Then why bother telling me this? Why bother helping me at all if you hate me so much?" And she says this, "The answer is one that I've already alluded to, and it's because, from this moment on, you will have nothing to do with me. I don't care if it eats away at you from the inside out, and you are strictly forbidden from ever even attempting to get to know me. The reason I was willing to help you out to the extent I have today is that my existence is heavily dependent on yours, and that existence is in grave danger if you do not heed this warning." This is an absolutely massive lore dump and has extreme implications for the nature of this world. For some reason, Maya somehow knows the true nature of Sensei's existence. She knows that he's not the real Sensei, not really Ami's uncle, that he probably woke up here one day and just took control and is trying to move on like nothing happened, undetected, and not even Ami, his own niece, could see it. So how can Maya? How can she know this? What does she know? And where did this cosmic nihilism come from? What has she experienced? How can she know all of this? What does Sensei have to say about all of this? Do I make myself clear? Absolutely. So you agree to leave me alone? And to never come here again? Absolutely not. Great. Fucking thanks, Sensei. Sensei basically ignores this warning, electing to treat Maya just like any of the other girls. She continues on. "I want you to stop looking for answers and just go enjoy your new exciting life surrounded by tons of cute girls not named Maya. Because getting close to you is the actual worst thing that could possibly happen. For both of us. Not just me." And he basically flatly says, "I don't care. I'm still gonna pursue you anyway and not leave you alone." All in the same effortlessly cool flirt Tony's kept this entire time through talking with every other girl. "So you intend to drag the two of us into ruin together? Is that what you really want?" is her response. He just doesn't care about her warning. He basically says to the reader, how can I not pursue her if she somehow knows about my existence? He goes on. "Of course I'm going to keep coming back to her when she's presenting an entire platter worth of reasons to do that right in front of my face. I have no idea where to start when I do. Everything on the platter is something I've never seen before, but I guess that's how everything is for me now. This life, this town, all one big beautiful platter of new things, and I can't wait to get my hands on all of them." And then, "Maya's affection has increased to 1. Enjoy your stay at Kumonmi." After that, you get one more nighttime choice to interact with another girl, and then you go to sleep, marking the end of day 3. From there on, you shouldn't expect many more tutorials or scripted sequences. The game is basically an open-world sandbox at this point, enabling choices to interact with and increase the affection points of each girl of your choosing. Including Maya? Why? No, seriously. why the fuck did Maya's affection points increase after this obviously hostile interaction? Even after what just happened, you are still fully able to increase your affection points with Maya. In fact, you already have. And not only that, how the fuck does she know everything that she does? I'd like to remind all of you that we did not just stumble into an Easter egg. This interaction with Maya is not optional. You have to go to the shrine. This conversation will happen. Maya obviously has some kind of self-awareness about what's going on in this world. She somehow has an understanding of reality and alternate worlds and souls being recycled or whatever. But the important thing is, she knows that Sensei has been isekai'd. So the fact that she has this understanding, knows that you're not the real Sensei, and the fact that she has made it clear she wants nothing to do with you, makes it all the more strange and disturbing that it's possible to increase your affection points with her, and that she is seemingly still very much a romanceable character, which makes me wonder why. Maybe this is just a red herring, you know? Maybe she's just a standard fourth wall breaking type character, like a Deadpool, and she's just actually secretly some generic tsundere who's hiding her true feelings about Sensei, which, you know, sounds really lame, but given the game so far, I wouldn't exactly be surprised if that was the outcome. Maybe Maya did have some sort of real relationship with the previous Sensei, and now that she knows he's been soul swapped, she wants nothing to do with the person wearing the body of someone that she knows. Or maybe it's something darker. Maybe she knows that she doesn't actually have control over her feelings and actions due to the nature of this world. No matter how she feels or what she wants, Sensei interacting with her will increase her affection points. And perhaps she will be forced into doing and feeling God knows what. But then, why would she say that her existence depends on Sensei's? Does she know that Sensei's choices would lead to a bad ending for her? Does her existence depend on being a romanceable character in the game? Or is it the opposite? Maybe the more that Sensei pursues her, the more that she will have to exist in this game, this world, whatever it is, and maybe that's the last thing that she wants. Right now, it's not really clear, but again, remember what the narrator said. This world was made for you. It's a perfect, sick fantasy for someone like Sensei, and he wants to enjoy that fantasy to the fullest. He says it himself. Even Maya wants that. She literally says, you'd be a moron not to do exactly that. She knows that none of this is real, that none of this really matters, and she wants Sensei to do whatever perverted shit he wants as long as it's far away from her. And Sensei responds by saying, I don't care. He will drag himself and Maya to ruin for his own desires. We are very early into Lessons in Love, and this video does not even cover like an eighth of what's available in the game. Like I said earlier, a big part of the appeal for this game, what keeps people coming back, according to people who have played the game a lot longer than I have, is the characters, because of how fleshed out and well written they are. But right now, with my experience this early in the story, all of the girls just seem so flat and generic, like generic template dating sim characters. I mean, obviously they all have their own unique personalities and backstories and issues. That's really clear. And I know logically that if I keep playing, I will understand them all better. But at the same time, right now, they still all sort of act like these perfect fantasy characters that only exist for Sensei to gawk at. And right now, in a roster that feels like that, Maya instantly sticks out like a sore thumb. She is the opposite of everything this world has built up to so far. A girl that you shouldn't go after. Someone who isn't head over heels for the protagonist, who knows that this is all just a fantasy, and who knows exactly what Sensei is. Maya is the talking cat from Rick and Morty. I just realized that kind of sounds insane without context. If you don't get the reference, I'll explain it. In Rick and Morty, Season 4, Episode 4, we open with Jerry encountering a talking cat, and at first he's obviously confused.
So then why are you talking?
Why should that matter?
Why should it not matter?
Maybe it's time you stopped asking questions and started having fun.
Oh.
But eventually he just kind of accepts it and ends up going to Florida with the cat to just, you know, party and have fun. In a show as nihilistic as Rick and Morty is, you'd probably expect the cat to be trying to secretly trick everyone so we can eat their souls or something. But it seems like the cat really is just a talking cat. It just wants to have fun, and it doesn't answer when people inevitably ask how it can talk.
Pretty fun boat. Fun people. That's great, not being asked why I can talk.
Jerry and the cat end up getting stranded in the middle of Florida, and when Rick shows up to take them back home, he stops, traps the cat in the middle of nowhere in a force field, and scans its brain to learn exactly why it can talk.
What is this?
I need you in one spot for a clean mind scan.
Mind scan? Look, you're overthinking it. The point of a talking cat is to have fun.
Find the insinuation that I can't ask questions and have fun condescending.
All right, I'm from outer space. Happy?
No.
Exactly, because no answer would be satisfying.
They bring the device up to their eyes to see exactly what's in the cat's head, and what they see is so horrifying that both of them are traumatized. Jerry crawls away in fear of the cat. Rick points a gun at himself. They both scream for the cat to get the hell away from them. Whatever they saw in that cat's head, whatever answer they were looking for, it was simply too much for them to bear. The talking cat is basically the writer's way of making fun of people that overanalyze Rick and Morty. But I think you could also read the talking cat as an idea that some things are better left unquestioned. That if the surface level is perfectly fine, then you should probably just stay there. Because if you go around looking for trouble, well, that's exactly what you're going to find. That is what Maya is. She is aware that this world is just a fantasy, and she is clearly saying that she doesn't want anything to do with Sensei. She tells him, this world is fake, nothing matters, it's a perfect fantasy, just enjoy it and stay the hell away from me. Don't look any deeper, don't look for answers, or you will ruin everything. And Sensei doesn't care. That doesn't mean he does or doesn't want to gain deeper knowledge of this strange world he's found himself in. At this point in the game, it's not exactly clear, but even when faced with the only character so far who understands what's going on, and the only one who doesn't want this to happen to her, Sensei will still pursue her and ignore her warnings. I fucking hate Sensei. He is a horrible, selfish, sadistic predator that, even when presented with the chance to continue his fantasy as long as he respects the boundaries of one person, he still says no, actively admitting that he will hurt anyone and do anything to get what he wants, even if it goes against his own best interests. And frankly, I'm not exactly at the point where I'm a fan of the other characters. Right now, I know so little about them that all of them seem to just exist as objects of Sensei's desires. None of them feel like actual realized characters yet, but Maya does. She feels like a real person. She has this acute awareness that no other character seems to possess. She is willing to stand up to what are, from her perspective, incomprehensible forces, soul-swapping people that she used to know. She is intelligent enough, perceptive enough, to realize that Sensei has been replaced, and she tells him straight to his face to fuck off. And that's awesome! It's basically instantly made her my favorite character in the game, and it makes me want to respect her wishes. But then, well, what are her wishes? What is she asking for specifically? She wants to be left alone. And mechanically, that means not interacting with her at all, meaning I'd only be interacting with the other girls and continuing to play the role of this predatory asshole that Sensei is to the other girls instead. And I don't want to be in that scenario. This shit makes me really uncomfortable. If I was just here to play a creepy dating sim game, I wouldn't be fucking recording it and putting it on YouTube. I'm here because I want to understand the mysteries that are being alluded to here. I want to uncover the secrets in the ARG and the glitches and secret messages. And how do I do that? Well, seemingly by increasing affection points with Maya, the only character who possesses knowledge of how this world actually works, doing the only thing that she explicitly told me not to do. And that's when I realized it. I was already trapped. If I ignore Maya like she asked and pursue the other girls, that just means I'm playing the game, quote, as intended, engaging with a disgusting predatory fantasy on its own terms. But if I chase down Maya for answers, try to learn more, ask why the cat can talk, I am explicitly violating the consent of the only character that I actually like in this game. The only character that has said no. And for what? To drag her into ruin alongside me? Just to get answers? It's damned if you do and damned if you don't. The only morally correct option here is just to quit the game. Turn around now, refuse to engage any further. But how can I do that now, when there's still so many questions left unanswered? And so I kept playing. Not that I was happy to, but I had to know more. I had to know if I was being strung along for some predatory fantasy simulator, or if I was genuinely experiencing a sophisticated work of art. I I had to know. I had to keep pushing further and further. Just like Sensei. The game had me trapped. It knew it. I knew it. And I kept playing anyway. At this point in Lessons in Love, we follow a pretty simple gameplay loop. Wake up, choose locations to visit, encounter a girl, increase affection points with them, and then move on to the next location. Occasionally a unique event will play. Then go to sleep, wake up, rinse and repeat. Generally speaking, it seems like each character has a set location that they're at certain times in the day. In the mornings on weekends, Ami is in her room. In the afternoon, Maya is at the shrine. In the evening, Makoto works at her family's porn shop because of fucking course that's where she works. This part of the game, and perhaps the rest of the game, is a bit more tedious. For the next 22 or so in games, here are the notable and interesting things that I encountered. And I want to stress the word notable here because there was kind of a lot of nothing going on. There was a lot of waking up, picking a location, saying hi to a student, occasionally getting a cutscene or event, and then going to sleep over and over and over and over again. You're gonna get to feel that, trust me, so let's get to it. On day 4, I went to the dorm rooms and found Maya. When I talked to her, as expected, she said to fuck off and die. And when Sensei responds by doing the only thing he seemingly can do, flirt, Maya questions why he's like this by default. This constant need to flirt with me will only make me hate you more, This was about what I expected going into another Maya interaction. So far, this has been the only way Maya has interacted with Sensei. He shows up, awkwardly tries to flirt with her, and she aggressively rejects him. It's been this way every single time. Sensei ends up asking out Maya on a dinner date, to which Maya responds, "Do not tempt me with free food, not with that disgusting look on your face." Wait, tempt? As in, there's a chance that would work? I mean, Maya does love food. She can eat a shit ton of food, especially watermelons, as I later discover. She loves watermelons, but still, that's not the same aggressive, clear, fully explicit fuck off and die that she usually has to say to Sensei. It's almost like banter. It's a weirdly responsive pushback to Sensei asking her out on a date. Like, would tempting her with free food actually work? In fact, now that I think about it, Maya has just been standing here outside of her door for a while now, entertaining Sensei's nonsense. But she made it very clear that she does not want Sensei to pursue her. So why is she still here? Why is she not just leaving the conversation, moving like a foot into her room and shutting the door behind her? Is it because she can't? Or because she doesn't actually want to? Is she really starting to get closer to Sensei? And then I caught myself. I just spent this whole time reading a no as a maybe because Maya used one ambiguous word and is still technically standing there in the hallway. And I know where that reasoning leads to in the real world. In real life, that mindset is what people use to justify sexually harassing women who've already said no. It's why a lot of women will actively stay in uncomfortable conversations in the first place, because actually leaving and saying no sometimes really isn't a safe option, which makes the alternative even more unsettling. What if Maya is standing here not because she wants to, but because she literally can't leave this interaction? Maybe she feels unsafe doing so, or what if the game is deliberately weaponizing that? Maybe she actually likes that instinct to say something about my complicity here. Or is this maybe just a tsundere trope being played straight, and I'm just reading too much into it? I mean, this is fiction, right? You're allowed to read into what a character says and try to pick up their actual intentions beyond just what they're saying in the text, right? I don't know, and I don't like that I went there at all. But regardless, this interaction increases Maya's affection points by 1. At some point while going through the game, I ended up opening the menu and I discovered something. I probably should have done a better job checking through the menus earlier, but I realized that there's an option for DLC content. What kind of DLC content? Like side stories, expansions to the story? No. The DLC tab listed several purchasable scenes for sale, not safe for work scenes, each one for a different character. Several scenes were labeled as lolly. Okay, look, I know this game has a lot of problematic elements to it, but at least it seemed like the game was self-aware. But like, what the fuck is this? How can the game justify just straight up selling lolly sex scenes as premium content? I'm gonna be completely honest, up until now, I've sort of been building a case for this game in my head. Even knowing about the messed up content and the messed up premise, I wanted to enjoy this game's story, and I wanted to understand it because, I don't want to think I've just wasted my time here, because so far, the story really has seemed to be above its premise. The dream sequence, the self-aware narration, Maya as a whole, the game's sophisticated writing and character work, and how it engineers the player's own complicity. And I thought to myself, sure, this is a fucked up game, but, keyword but, there's clearly a lot more going on here, something intentional and deliberate. And then I opened up the DLC menu, and suddenly it was a lot harder to say but after calling this fucked up. This isn't something I'm going to defend. Whatever the intentions are from the offset, it seems like this is just straight up selling lolly content. Not something that's shown in the game to make you uncomfortable, but just something that you choose to buy because you want to see it. There's a big difference there. Now, maybe all these DLC scenes are just like the rest of what we've seen. Ironic and aware of what they are, and not just literal porn. The thing is, though, self-awareness and meta-commentary are great for making the player feel really smart for knowing that the thing on screen is bad. And it's also great for allowing them to justify continuing to engage. Maybe these lolly scenes are actually really intelligently made. I don't know. I'm certainly not buying one to find out. Fuck that. I do not respect this being in the game whatsoever. But then again, here I am, still playing the game and still making a video about it. It's not like I Alt F4'd right then and there in some performative moral outrage. That would be easy and probably make me look pretty good. But I'm still here, still reading the visual novel, still playing the game. And me choosing not to stop is just one more example of me crossing line in order to find some sort of greater meaning. This is such a specific and messed up contradiction, and I'm still playing anyway, and I don't know how the game is supposed to reconcile with that. It's to the point where I almost want to talk to the creator of the game himself, Selebus, and just ask him why is this here if it really is as bad as it looks. But anyway, let's just move on. I hate that I'm even saying that. God, let's just move on from this. Fuck. Around day 17, I ended up talking to Chika in one of the dorm rooms. The conversation was fairly generic. Interestingly though, Chika kind of turns the tables on Sensei a bit, at least for a moment. She points out that if they're going to go through with his proposal of becoming, basically friends with his informal teaching style, then they should probably try to get to actually know each other a bit better. Chika is surprisingly emotionally intelligent, so she ends up asking what Sensei's interests are, what he's good at and likes outside of just teaching and schoolwork. And this catches Sensei off guard, so he thinks about it for a second before answering. I think I've always been good at writing? Chika seems intrigued by this response, and jumping at the chance to get to know him a bit better, she asks him what kind of things he likes to write. Sensei responds, nothing anymore, but I feel like nothing anymore. His response changes. Chika points out that Sensei looks pale. The moment hangs for an uncomfortably long time, but before he can say anything, Yumi barges into the conversation, and their talk abruptly ends. This is my first time in my playthrough that the game went all Denpa mode outside of a fully scripted or unskippable moment, and it seems like this glitch was only triggered when Sensei tried to remember something about his past life. This is the first real time we get a glimpse into what Sensei's life was actually like before he ended up here in Kumonmi. I mean, we knew he was a creep, but it seems he also had some sort of complex life before this, an interest in writing, maybe implying he was some sort of artist or creative. But the moment he tries to remember it, the world seems to suppress it. Immediately, this moment thinks about how many times that Sensei has pointed out how eerily convenient and perfectly crafted his desires this world is. He's aware of how fake this all is, some part of him still believing or wanting to believe that none of this is real and that none of it matters. Perhaps the only way Sensei can remain in this fantasy is if he believes that he doesn't have anything meaningful to return to. Maybe that's why he jumped off the roof at the start of the game, assuming that's what the opening is actually meant to imply. But if he killed himself to get here, that kind of implies he, wants to be here, right? If he truly wants to be here to make the most of his fantasy and not return to his past life, then why does he freak out so much when he's reminded of it? Is it because he wants to keep it in the dark, unlit? Or are there perhaps greater forces here at play that are deliberately trying to keep him tethered to this fantasy? I don't have an answer to that yet, but I find it really interesting that the world seems to do something when Sensei gets too close to remembering something about who he used to be, who he was before this. And it seems like if this place really was, quote, meant for him, part of that means that it needs him to have nowhere else he'd want to go, and nothing for him to return to. On day 7, there is a cutscene where Yumi, the bully girl, gets in trouble for bullying Futaba for being overweight. And Jesus, she's brutal about it, oh my god. Hey Futaba, I'm really sorry for being in such a bad mood today. I really care about all the starving children out there. And knowing you could single-handedly end world hunger by just giving up your lunch for the day kind of triggers me.
Jesus fucking Christ, Yumi, leave her alone. Oh my god.
I was just kidding! Come on! Come on! You guys know I was just kidding, right?
Sensei calls her into his office to try and talk to her and work out this bullying issue. Yumi storms in, clearly pissed off about being called into the office. Sensei interrogates why she's so hostile all the time, saying that if something is bothering her, that she can talk about it with him. But Yumi isn't exactly comforted by Sensei saying this. In fact, she's confused. You think that I, Yumi Yamaguchi, the girl you fuck with more than anybody, am just going to open up to you just because you said it's okay? It seems like the previous sensei didn't really have the best student-teacher relationship with Yumi. You hate me, I hate you. That's how the shit goes. That's how the shit stays. Sensei tries to get through to her, but she isn't having any of it. He says, I just can't really figure out how I'm supposed to talk to you. To which she responds, yeah, well, that's probably because you're not supposed to talk to me. They argue for a bit more before Sensei eventually dismisses her. And you'd think that after a one-on-one interaction with one of the girls, Yumi's affection points would go up. But they don't. Affection points with Maya and Ami went up pretty regularly earlier in the game, through scripted events that you're supposed to encounter. And this interaction with Yumi is no different. You can't skip this. But her affection points didn't go up, which made me realize something. I don't think that the affection point system is something that's purely arbitrary. It responds accurately to something. What, vulnerability? Breaking through some sort of barrier? I don't know, but what I want to know is, why did it not go up with Yumi, but did go up with Maya? On day 17, I went to the library and encountered Futaba. She's studying and asked Sensei for help interpreting a poem, which reads as follows. There are days we live as if death were nowhere. In the background, from joy to joy to joy, from wing to wing, from blossom to blossom, to impossible blossom, to sweet impossible blossom. Of the options you have as interpretations of the poem, one choice is that it's about fleeting happiness, which she seems to agree with. She says that the impossible blossom is a metaphor for the impossibility of never-ending ecstasy. And Sensei says, overanalyzing things only serves to break immersion and take you out of a moment, but is often wrong and pointlessly convoluted.
Fuck off, Sensei! Oh my god, I hate you! I hate you, Selebus!
Funnily enough, this actually parallels what the narrator said at the very start of the game, about how they don't like poetry because of the heavy interpretation that it necessitates. But I don't care about that right now. The game was literally breaking the fourth wall right now in the most annoying way possible, calling me an asshole for trying to be analytical about the game you're supposed to analyze, you fuck! But still, this is not the first time that the game has, directly or indirectly, told me to stop looking for deeper meaning. Maya said it before, just enjoy the fantasy, don't look for answers. And now, the game itself is telling me not to overanalyze it through Sensei. Time and time again, it's telling me to just enjoy the fantasy, the surface level, to stop trying to push for further answers. And I've kept on pushing, every time. I've continuously analyzed and interpreted pieces of this game, big and small, in only this small sliver of the game in its totality. Throughout this portion of the run, I made note to visit the shrine and talk to Maya regularly, in order to increase my affection points with her. I did this in the hopes that she'd end up revealing more information about the world, the lore, any number of secrets and glitches. And every time, she just went, nope, bye, and left. her affection points still continuing to increase. At first, I was actually kind of looking forward to talking with Maya more, visiting the shrine and getting more interactions, but I quickly realized that Maya didn't have much to say to me. I wasn't getting long conversations full of banter and comebacks that showed off her personality and hinted at greater insight into the world. No, it was just, you visited the shrine. Maya was upset about it, over and over and over again, which made me not as excited to keep interacting with her. But I still did it. Whenever I had the chance, I talked to her in the dorm room if I saw her, or I visited her at the shrine. And I went from looking forward to it to feeling kind of guilty to just feeling numb, bored, impatient, just waiting for the moment where I would finally get some lore and everything would finally click into place for me. At one point, Sensei even thinks to himself, well, it seems like she hates me a little less. But does she? I don't even really know. What does any of this mean? Does she hate Sensei any less? Is she actually starting to get closer with him? Or is this just a purely mechanical element of the game that she has no control over, that she knows will force her into doing things against her will? Whatever the answer is, I'm still going against her wishes. I'm still getting closer to her, despite her explicitly telling me not to. And I continue to do it, one affection point at a time. On day 22, I'm surprised by a pixelated transition into a dark, empty school hallway at night. Sensei is leaving school later than usual because of paperwork. He monologues to himself, thinking about how it's been around 3 weeks since he was reborn here, and is sort of just listlessly asking himself what he's even doing here, what he wants out of this new life. There's no one here, not even me. Why is me crossed out? The last time the game, this world, seemed to censor or suppress something was Sensei thinking about his past life when Chika brought it up, his previous enjoyment of writing. But here, it's escalated from thinking about his past life to thinking about himself at all. The screen glitches. At the end of the hallway is a nude girl, but only for a split second, accompanied by static. He starts thinking to himself, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Where do I go? When will I get there? These questions spread through my mind like an invasive species, killing off everything but themselves in an attempt to take over me once and for all. Fighting it just makes them mate faster, and soon enough, I can't take a single step without cracking an egg. He continues walking, his thoughts still spiraling. Another day ends, but not before I get lost in the quiet contemplation of what my goal here is. And not before I give up on that and make a new one instead. I want to make a mountain of sorts. Stand atop a pile of used teenagers, knowing if I were to rest at the summit, the pile would move and a new peak would form. From the top to the bottom, transference of power that we can all enjoy. How long until the mountain forms? How long until we're all used up? The naked girl appears again for a frame and Sensei finds himself outside. But at first glance, it's not even that clear what's being depicted here. It almost has an industrial ghetto look to it, with these ominous red and green lights on either side. And in the distance, a wall of static like a thick fog, like it's at the end of the world. Sensei sees the static and believes it to be an exit. He feels it calling him forward, trying to help him. Help him what? Escape? Does Sensei want to leave? Is this some sort of desire that's being repressed somehow? Sensei can't bring himself to move, and he's fine with that. This place was built for you, me. Again, it's crossed out. I can do whatever I want, and everyone else is just furniture. And then Yumi is here, and they talk. Not like a, dream sequence, fourth wall breaking nightmare conversation, but they just talk completely normally, as if there aren't strange lights and a giant wall of static right over there. Yumi talks about how she's genuinely really confused about Sensei's behavior, almost disappointed. Before, Sensei would target her constantly for her behavior, and now he's just letting it all slide, allowing her to run free. It's messing with her head. Sensei says that he's out here wandering because he's trying to understand his place here. And Yumi is like, yeah, you and everyone else, asshole. I still think you're a creep. They seem to have a pretty genuine and normal conversation. Apart from Sensei still being the same old creep, still telling her to lay off Futaba, and still being vaguely flirty, Yumi goes back home. He ponders that it's strange that he ran into her this late, but he's glad that he did. Not because he cared about making her stop bullying Futaba, but because she was able to prevent me from walking toward the light. A yellow smiley face appears on the screen. Text in the bottom corner reads, "I did it again." The word Thursday at the top of the screen is overlaid with upside-down text that reads, "Erase yourself." Then the narration comes back. Text on screen, crossed out, reads, "Congratulations! You've unlocked a special event with there is something buried beneath your feet. Why don't you try and find it? Yumi's affection has it."
And the game just fucking continues like normal?
Well, not for long. Day 24. Ami isn't at breakfast. Which is weird because for the past 20-odd days, that's been her constant role in the game. Sensei wakes up, she makes him breakfast before he goes off to do whatever. But she's nowhere to be found, so Sensei goes to her room to check on her and see what she's doing. The screen locks onto a CG of Ami in her room, goon maxing. But the scene isn't played straight for long, as it quickly cuts from something overtly sexual to another glitch moment. The game glitches out and flashes static on the screen, with the happy face returning, the same text at the bottom reading, "I did it again." She cleans herself up and gets dressed like nothing happened, and Sensei and Ami head out into town to get ingredients for breakfast. When they get back home, Ami and Sensei have a pretty normal conversation as she chops up the vegetables for breakfast. Ami jokes about poisoning Sensei's breakfast and her own in a classic Romeo and Juliet style suicide, because of how much she loves him, obviously. Then, Ami starts to reminisce about her past with Sensei, how she loved reading the old Shakespeare plays, even if she didn't really understand them, with all the big and archaic words they used. But the conversation quickly gets derailed when Ami accidentally brings up her mom. For just a moment, a photograph was visible on screen. Going back and pausing to see what it was, it's a photograph of an outdoor pathway lined with what looks like cherry blossom trees. White cursive text on the picture reading, "I miss you more every day." Cutting back to reality, it turns out Ami accidentally cut herself. Sensei offers to help, but she just leaves. And immediately we get this narration. "Ami bled to death all over the bathroom floor. I keep what's left of her thumb in a jar on my nightstand. I kiss it before going to sleep. Just kidding." I end up calling Ami on the phone to see if she's still alive, and sure enough, you're able to hang out with her like nothing just happened. It really seems like Ami has some serious unresolved issues with her parents. If you recall, way back at the start of the game, Ami outright refused to answer any question about her parents and where they were, to the point where it felt extremely jarring. And now here, even just mentioning her mom on accident leads her to this episode. The picture specifically says, "I miss you more every day." If it was just "I miss my mom," that would be, really sad, obviously. But the fact that she says she misses her more every day tells me this isn't just some traumatic event in her past, but something of an ongoing crisis that she's actively repressing that is just getting worse with time. And clearly, this is not the extent of her potential suffering. This is the second time since the BYN dream sequence that this kind of thing has happened to Ami specifically, with over-the-top sexual imagery being paired with over-the-top violence. In the former, her head was falling off and the room was filled with blood, and in the latter, it's like she was pulverized with nothing left but blood in her thumb. And not to mention her being reminded of her severe trauma relating to her parents. There is clearly a lot going on behind the scenes with Ami, a lot more than meets the eye. And you can say that about basically every character in this game. But I think the reason I got this particular scene with Ami is because I had more affection points with her than the other characters, which makes me wonder, is Ami just this game's punching bag? Does she have a predisposition to being the victim of horrific sexual violence and trauma? Or is that just survivorship bias? Is the reason that these horrible things are happening to Ami specifically because I'm raising my affection points with her? And if so, is that inevitable for anyone that Sensei gets close to? So, I've now played through about 23 in-game days in Lessons in Love, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about what those 3 weeks have actually been like. Back on day 2, I noted that after the BYN dream sequence, everything that came after really didn't seem that crazy by comparison. But that wasn't just day 2. So far, that's been almost my entire experience with this tiny portion of the game. The BYN dream sequence completely changed my baseline. Somewhere between day 7 and day 22, I kind of just stopped flinching at what was on the screen. Sensei's monologue about standing atop a pile of used teenagers, Sensei almost walking into a wall of static at the edge of the world, Ami being killed, and her death instantly being undone. I made note of it and moved on. And through it all, I kept going to interact with Maya to farm affection points with her at every chance I could get. I'm getting desensitized to what I'm experiencing. I was never here for the fantasy provided by the game's premise. I was here to understand the story, the lore, and so I made note of these anomalies, kept interacting with Maya, documenting, analyzing, taking notes, and I tell myself that I'm not here to be a creep. I'm doing something valuable with my time here. I'm critically analyzing art. That's what separates me from the people who just play the game to enjoy it. But that's the exact argument that Sensei has fallen back on at this point in the game. He knows that this world is wrong, and he doesn't care. Even when he gets a chance to leave, getting a glimpse at what could have been the light that illuminates his self, his dust, he's turned away from it. And he still wraps his fantasies in flowery language and calls it poetry, does whatever he wants to whoever he wants, and justifies it through his own self-awareness. And that's kind of what I've been doing, right? For the past 23 days, each passing day with even less of a reaction to it. I kept farming Maya's affection points despite her explicit warning because I decided that my reasons for doing it were good enough to ignore her wishes. I decided that the outcome would be worth it. And that's what Sensei decides about the girls every day. And here I was, ignoring that my choices rhymed with his. And then I think about the DLC page, the lolly sex scenes, labeled plainly for sale right there in the menu. This whole time, I had thought about the game as a sophisticated and intentionally crafted meta-narrative. The filters on the first day, the fourth wall breaking moments, everything in between. I still thought of the game in that way. And yet, right off to the side, in the same game, from the same creator, right there in the main menu, is that kind of content being sold as a premium reward for supporters. And that's not okay. That's just blatantly fucking disgusting. And I still believe both of those things to be true. And I'm still playing the game anyway. What does that say about me? On day 3, Maya told me to stop looking for answers. On day 7, Sensei told me to stop overanalyzing. Time and time again, the game has told me not to ask why the cat can talk. And time again, I've just kept pushing and pushing. I don't know how to take a hint, apparently. So, here I am, the end of day 24, about 5% through the longest visual novel ever made. By this point in the game, I am exhausted. I'm uncomfortable. I keep thinking about Maya's warning, that pursuing her will lead both her and Sensei to ruin. I keep thinking about how no matter what she does or says, her affection points just keep going up and up. And as I have, I've seen more and more glitches and anomalies, reminders of Sensei's past, sudden cuts to static, Ami's death being instantly undone, the smiley face. Things just keep getting weirder and darker. I'm about to hit day 25, but first I have one more choice left to make in the evening. I look at the available locations and choose the dorms. No one is standing in the hallway. If I want to interact with anyone here, I'll have to have enough affection points to them for them to let me into their room. And, well, it just so happens that I've been farming affection points with Maya this entire time. So I thought, hey, I might as well check if she'll let me in. Surely I have enough affection points with her by now, right? Maybe she'll let me into her room and we'll just talk. Talk about the nature of the reality of lessons in love. Maybe she'll open up about her feelings on her place in the world, the burden of her self-awareness, her relationship with the real sensei. But even if that's the case, I know that doing this is wrong. She told me to leave her alone. Maybe this whole time I've been avoiding trying to enter her room because of some vain attempt to respect her wishes for as long as possible, as much as the game would allow me. But I need to know. I have to know what's really going on here, what this game is building towards, if any of this was worth it. I really didn't want to have to enter her room like this. Isn't it kind of a breach of privacy? But she really leaves me no choice. I gently open the door. Maya? I wake up in a room with clocks. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, covering the walls. None of them have hands, but they all still tick in different increments. In the corner, there's a nude girl facing away. You can't see her face, but it's Maya. In the center of the room, there's a wooden chair. On it is a glass box with a tiny sensei trapped inside. A camera facing me propped on top of it. Behind the chair is a door with a smiley face etched into it, and hanging from the ceiling is a noose. What little light there is in here is blue and tired, leaving this place looking lonely and desolate and cold. The text box just reads ... I click and click and click, but it's just ... over and over and over. When the text appears again, Sensei comments on the room before realizing that he's strapped to a wooden chair. Dozens of termites emerge from the chair and feast on Sensei's flesh as he's slowly turned into wood. Another stock photo appears on the screen of the termite queen. He's thankful for the termite queen and the giant white sack of eggs it produces, yet his gaze is still fixed on Maya's figure. She glitches forward, taking up most of the screen, a crazed, hollow expression painted across her face. She starts speaking in Japanese text that, when translated, reads, "Welcome. How are you? Are you happy? Are you horny? Are you scared? Tell me. I want to know. I want to know." It gets graphic here. Termites and spiders crawl out of her body. Sensei is smothered by this strange Maya. "Welcome to the end of the world. Are you enjoying the show?" Sensei can only respond that he can't breathe, that he can only see her body. "It belongs to you," she says. "The whole world belongs to you. Doesn't this view remind you that God is real?" The image glitched. She's hanging now from crosses. Hollowed out watermelons surround her. More Japanese text appears on screen. Why? I want to go home." And then Sensei says something that makes my stomach drop. "This all could have been prevented if only I did not decide to knock on door number 5. The hanging Maya comes back to life and offers to help pleasure Sensei. He considers this, looking down at himself and thinking about how many people he's going to use before he discards his own genitals for the best. He laments that this is the one thing I have learned inside this room with clocks. Clearly someone begs to differ. "Oh no, it's not." Suddenly, teacher, a censored character, appears. The text in front of her says, unimportant non-spoiler character. The whiteboard reads, "Lesson, do sex to girls how to feel good." It plays a happy song of Japanese girls singing the English alphabet with an English word that goes along with it, but when the song reaches the letter T,
S, star, S, star, T.
She says, "Hello, I decided to clock in early today so I can give you a very special lesson before my next appearance in Chapter 2. Sensei, in a cipher, says, "Please no." The teacher gives a demented lesson, saying in weirdly simple terms how Sex is amazing because it makes the penis feel good. When she asks if Redacted likes it when that happens, again he responds in a cipher, I like it. She goes on. Meanwhile, girls have an entire chunk of their bodies taken out and are punished by God every month for not being men by floods of mucus and blood and urine and uterine filling that we have to soak up with cotton. And you can do sex with anyone you want, except for that fucking whore with the ponytail and watermelon fetish. You can do better than her. They keep this up for a bit before abruptly saying, I'm sorry. Class is canceled for the rest of the day. Goodbye, teacher. It cuts back to Maya's hanging body, but just for a moment. When I click again, it instantly cuts to...
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm...
One that predates it, where I am nothing but a puppet on the strings of a god who wants to watch me dance. The floor is covered in lush grass. The chair is knocked over, showing someone hanging from the noose in the center, limbs stretched out and taut like a puppet. Maya is affixed to the wall on one side, with a distorted face, and on the other side, another Maya sits hunched over on the floor, also distorted. A voice calls out to Sensei, their name in hexadecimal code that, when decoded, reads, You did it. Would you mind sacrificing a year or two of your life to answer a question for me? Sensei asks a question before answering their question. If I can see myself, the puppet in front of me, who am I? The same person you've always been, a puppet in the hands of a different god. Do you get it? People keep asking if I get things, but I don't get any of this. I just wanted to hang out with my niece and the watermelon girl. The voice responds. Things like this are gonna keep happening. No spoilers, but it's just the way things work down here. I just wanted to play a cute game where I got to fuck girls. I did not sign up for this. How cute! He thinks it's a game. It asks its question. You've been here for 24 days, and have somehow managed to not lose your mind. This might not sound like a big deal to some of our viewers who are tuning in for the first time, but to us, it's extremely impressive. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you've managed to avoid violently assaulting anyone this far? No comment. Well, that's it then. Join us next time after today's guest is a little more acquainted with... And then it leaves, citing cutting to a commercial break. I feel tears forming in the corners of my eyes, a burning sensation traveling up my esophagus. My eyes dart across the screen as I try to steady my breath, looking for God knows what. But the game has no patience for my dread, my fear. It just keeps going. Sensei is taken to another room with clocks, but this one is calmer. Sunflowers, a bird, an old PC, a computer with a happy face on it. The music is slow and eerie, but Sensei feels at ease. He still reels from apparently being turned into wood and eaten by termites, though he can't rest for long. Thick vines from the grassy floor pull him under. A user attempts to communicate with Sensei, but they quickly disconnect with the game's own text UI due to network issues. Distorted human figures litter the room, a jungle gym, a small child being patted on the head by a tall silhouette, a children's crossing sign, a hollow model of Maya with giant spider wrapped around her stomach. A cold sweat runs down the back of my neck. I can't move, and I just keep clicking. It reads out a poem. Jungle gym, won't you come out and play? Children crossing, heavy traffic, middle of the day. Look up, Jungle Gym. So much fun, let's climb. Jungle Gym, do you have the time? Sensei starts rambling. He's jealous of the silhouette petting the girl who purrs like a cat. He repeats over and over, I want to pet the cat, I want to pet the cat. Happy faces flash on the screen. His narration becomes demented, talking about wanting to do horrible things to any creature he sees. About becoming a nightmare. I will be everything you need and more. You will be my termite queen, and I will be your soldier. I will lick you to death when you can no longer deliver an adequate amount of eggs. Untangle me.
The coarseness of the ground upon which you sit tears microscopic holes in the fabric of a young girl's dress. It captivates you, like an unobscured horizon, or a beautiful bird you are seeing for the first time. A heron comes to mind. You find yourself pondering the difference light can make and why some things are so much prettier when left unlit. You forget this. Your mind goes somewhere else. You follow it. You end up in front of a well. You look down, but when your eyes make contact with the bottom, you realize that it is you that you are looking down upon.
She looks into the camera, at me, tears rolling down her face, sobbing yet smiling, pupils tiny. Again, she speaks in the same Japanese text as before. Welcome. How are you? Are you happy? Are you horny? Are you scared? Tell me. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know. She repeats herself over and over like a broken record. Behind me, I hear the text-to-speech voice again speak.
You find yourself pondering the difference light can make and why some things are so much prettier when left unlit.
The difference light can make and why things are so much prettier when left unlit. It's an inversion of the dust motif. Sensei tears off and eats a piece of Maya's flesh. She talks to him as he does this, the desperation clear in her voice and expression. Hey, do you want to get out of here together? Where would we go? Anywhere. Anywhere at all. Let's go. Can you get me out of this chair? I can't move very well anymore. Can you try? Can you try? Can you try? Move faster, 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 faster. What's the rush? You still haven't told me how we're supposed to get out of here. Wake up. That's the key. That's how we open the door. But you have to... The figures disappear. Maya looks horrified. She knows it's too late. She sobs. Everything is already gone. This is only the beginning. Things will only get worse from this point on. Don't look at this directly. Don't look at it at all. Its hands are fake. Its eyes are fake. Only trust your own. There is no God. God is dead. We're the only ones left. Hey, hey, look at me. Will you trust me? Will you take my hand? Will you listen even when you doubt me? Please, please. Hey, say something. Say something. Say something. Say something. Say something. It's warm. Something moves around inside of it. Body of Christ. Amen. The filling of the egg restores what I lost in my teeth. I am whole once more. I can control my legs again and persuade them to bring me closer to the curtain. I stare for 10 seconds before anything happens. Smile. It's all there is to do here. I smile. Or at least, I try to. Congratulations! You learned! Go learn more! Become stronger! Smile always! It's all there is to do here. In this moment, it seemed like it was finally over. Like the game was just going to continue like normal, like nothing bad had happened. Day 25 seemed to start normally. Ami made breakfast. Like it's always done, every day. The game asked me what I wanted to do. I closed the game and opened my Google Docs. I had a lot to write down, a lot of insane things to interpret and analyze. I'm I'm here to make a video essay. That's my job. But that's when I realized I just couldn't. I just stared at the screen. I stared so long my vision went blurry I forgot to blink, the pixels melting into brushstrokes. Thank God I recorded all of this, because frankly, if you told me to write the sequence of the video in that moment, I just couldn't do it. It's not like I didn't remember what happened, but it's like my brain was so crammed full of so many disparate feelings and ideas and symbols that I was lost in the foliage of my own thoughts. I had to sleep on it, and it was only then that I could zoom out and understand what actually just happened. She warned me. She explicitly told me that pursuing her would drag us both into ruin, that her existence depended on me staying away from her. And I did it anyway, because I wanted answers, because I was curious. I asked why the cat could talk. I had to keep pushing and pushing because she was the only character I actually cared about. And then this happened, whatever this was. After it ends, you just end up in Sensei's bedroom again. Was it a dream, a glitch in reality, something real that was just undone? Or was it a premonition, a warning? Is this the ruin that Maya was warning me about? Or is this just a taste of what's to come if I continue down this path? I don't know. All I know is I saw her hanging there, torn apart, eaten from the inside out by bugs, begging for mercy, begging for escape, and all I could do was watch. At the very start of the game, the narrator said that dust, something invisible, can become beautiful when light hits it in the right way. But the room with clocks has a different answer to that idea. The robotic voice in the background said that some things are so much prettier when left unlit. Some things are better left in the darkness. And I just turned on the lights. She was hanging there, while I just watched. Will you trust me? Will you take my hand? I wanted to say yes, but I'd already given her my answer. I clicked on her door despite everything. I have played a lot of horror games, watched tons of horror movies, and played plenty of creepy and disturbing visual novels. Horror has been my entire life for the past 10 years, and nothing has ever made me more terrified than seeing what happened to what I did to Maya. She's hanging there because of me. Not because of Sensei's perversion or because of the game's sadism. It was because of me. I chose to increase her affection points. I chose to ignore her warnings. I chose to visit her room despite everything she said. I'm done. I get it now. I get why people play Lessons in Love. And I'm never playing it again. I'm so sorry. It took a lot longer than I'm happy to admit to get unimmersed in the story and realize that this wasn't literally a demon from hell tormenting me through the screen, but instead a very specific and intentionally crafted experience made by a human being that I would have a lot to say to if I could talk to them right now. But no, the fact is, this was a very intended experience, and I was far from the only one who's seen this. There's an entire Discord server full of people who have been playing this game since it was first released back in 2020, and have kept up with every single update over the years. Updates, mind you, that are dozens and dozens and dozens of hours out from where I stopped playing. And while I'm sure that fans of Lessons in Love exist elsewhere online, this is the official Discord server for the game. So I figured if I'm going to understand the community surrounding this game and maybe ask what the fuck this was, then I'd understand it here. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the reputation that the Lessons in Love community has was a bit polarizing to say the least. People called it toxic, full of gatekeeping behavior, protective of the game to the point of hostility. And it's easy to see why this reputation exists. After all, this is a game that covers a ton of extremely dark and fucked up topics, and contains content that will inevitably attract some pretty bad crowds. If you want to see what that looks like, just look at the comments in my Sai no Uta video, and that applies to both directions. The fact is, this is just the kind of game, the kind of media, where you're going to get people who join this server just to come in hot with, "This game is disgusting and you're all pedophile," or the kinds of people that just want easy answers, explanations, and, cheat codes. And it makes a lot of sense that those kinds of more negative interactions would get filtered out back to places like Reddit, where they'll complain about the community, which leaves only the people who stuck around and actually had a good experience with the game. Because I am telling you, when I joined the server, everyone was so fucking nice. It was actually, really chill. Now, granted, they were very, passionate, and were often vague. Usually if I asked a question pertaining to the game, I'd get that sort of, "Well, you're just gonna have to play more and find out," smiley face. Which is a little frustrating when the game is as long as eternity and I just want a straight answer, but I do understand the instinct. Pretty much everyone there, at least that I talked to, has been playing this game for years, and or has played through everything it has to offer. They've put a major time investment into understanding the game's story, and they want newcomers to earn it, to have that same experience. Even then, I couldn't help but see the vines tangled around them. Lessons in Love is a constantly ongoing game that has kept people hooked for years. I wouldn't be surprised if that time investment was a major part of why people are, still here playing the game, even if they otherwise wouldn't. At least with something like Sai no Uta, which I had my issues with, I could just, walk away. But Lessons in Love is almost designed so that you can't. Of course, that does not mean that there aren't many things that are well made and genuinely well executed and impactful that keep people hooked. Is it convenient that keeping a slow and steady stream of content coming out month after month for a game that won't be finished until 2030 is very profitable and a stable source of income? Yeah, but Selebus is delivering on his promises, and it seems like the customers are happy, so who am I to complain? Everyone else found a good reason to keep playing, going further and further than I did, but I didn't. I chose to stop where I did and started to make the video. At around day 24, when others may have been going for hundreds of days, maybe even thousands. And from my understanding, a lot of how I perceive the game now, especially the characters, changes dramatically when you get further and further out from where I stopped. The further that they went into the game, the more their view of it shifted, and I knew that if I kept playing, I would learn more too. But from my perspective, as a complete newbie for this game, I kind of feel like this is where I started to get it in the loosest sense of the term, where I understood how sophisticated the game is and how it traps you. I believe 100% that there are more insane and impactful things later on in the game, but that doesn't change what I experience now trying to get there. To be fair, a big part of why I stopped playing was obviously because that shit was traumatizing as fuck, but mainly I stopped where I did because I got what I came here for. I was never here to make a full in-depth analysis and review of the entire game. No one can do that. Even the game's biggest fans can't because, the game's not finished yet. Many people even told me that even after all the time they spent in the game, they still don't truly get it. I said as much to the people in the Lessons in Love community, who, if I wasn't being clear, have been extremely kind and helpful in answering my questions about the game. A lot of them were rightfully disappointed that I was stopping here when there was still so much more to see, while others were just thankful I was talking about the game at all. And after seeing all I've seen, I definitely understand that. I completely get why there's no videos about this game, because this shit's gonna be so hard to monetize. Making any content about this game at all is gonna be a huge monetization risk. I don't know if this is gonna make any money at all. Hey, please like and subscribe. But yeah, this is where I was going to stop. Uninstall the game, start writing the script, and thank the people in the server being so helpful, even if they were, vague. And then Selebus pinged me. Out of fucking nowhere, the creator of Lessons in Love pinged me. He asked if I had any questions about the game, and not only that, he apparently watched my video essay about Sai no Uta.
What?
Immediately, my brain speedruns every single emotion at once. I was excited, then nervous, and then kind of scared. This person whose work just fucking ruined my entire life in a single instance for days and days. A game that has fucked with me worse than any game I've ever played before. Someone I'd heard so much about was just there, politely asking if I had any questions. Yeah, I can think of a few. I go into overdrive, I go over all my notes and my script, I think of everything I'm still confused about, and I try to distill the best thing I can possibly ask him because holy shit, I am not wasting this opportunity. Me freaking out aside, the fact that he chose to reach out now after I'd already said I was done with the game is actually really interesting and genuinely surprising. He watched my previous video essay. He knows why I'm here. He could have easily just said, hey 1KD, you're missing a lot of important context. Go play the game for X more hours before making your video. And I'll admit, if he did that, I probably would have listened, if for no other reason that's the fucking creator of the game telling me to do it. But he didn't. He just asked if I wanted to know anything, provided it wasn't a spoiler. I think that's really worth pointing out. So after giving it a lot of thought as quickly as I possibly could, I eventually narrowed it down to 2 pretty long questions about the game that I was still grappling with. Here's the first one I asked Selebus. From my experience with Lessons in Love, it seems clear that this is not meant to be a normal visual novel dating sim, something meant to appeal to the average reader looking to get their rocks off. It clearly makes fun of those kinds of people, and the game seems to serve as a critique slash deconstruction slash parody of generic not safe for work dating sims. But at the same time, the game features moments indistinguishable from bog standard dating sim porn games. The connections the girls have with Sensei often feel genuine, like something the player is meant to enjoy, and the DLC page has literal lolly sex scenes available for purchase. So for me, as someone who abhors that kind of content, I can't shake the feeling that there's a massive contradiction in the message of the game. How do you reconcile those 2 aspects? In your view, is the game meant to be a critique of that kind of media, or simply be an alternative, more self-aware and satirical way of providing it? Here's his response. It's true, as you've noticed, that Lessons in Love is not meant to be a generic dating sim, and it's true that the game spends a lot of its time mocking people that expect it to be, because I knew going in that Kumas were inevitably going to be the main demographic I attract. I wanted to sort of weaponize that though, so all of that meta stuff is really ham-fisted at the beginning of the game, specifically to try and get the player to shift ideas and open up their mind to the sort of themes the game has on display, while filtering those who aren't willing to do that. There is lolly content in this game, a lot of it, and it's not just for supporters either, as it's the main vessel I use to get across the central theme of abuse, specifically that of the cycle of abuse, and how things like what Sensei is doing are far more common than they ever should be. I completely understand why that puts people off, and I don't hold it against anyone who doesn't play the game for that reason. But I feel like, as an artist trying to evoke controversial topics, it's my responsibility to push boundaries and utilize every facet of art I can to get my message across. It's the same reason you'll see things like self-mutilation or suicide or animal cruelty, or other disgusting immoral topics that no one in their right mind would ever rally behind. But I think using cartoons as a medium to depict such heinous acts is not on its own immoral, so long as these concepts are not being promoted. I think the reason my game has appealed and impacted so many people in a positive way is because you get to see those horrors firsthand. A game about abuse where all the abuse happens off screen is about as emotionally evocative as a Twitter post. You can't change people through anecdotes alone. And one of the main reasons I'm writing about abuse in the first place is to help people who have experienced such things overcome them. That is what Sensei's journey is all about. It's just a massive, unapologetic trek through trauma, grief, and acceptance that is going to be very ugly at times. These scenes and graphic depictions of terrible things aren't rewards though, and it's important to me that people understand that. More often than not, the game punishes you for pursuing lust and grooming these girls. So while that content does exist, I think the context of it matters. But again, I completely understand why that may be too much for some people, and I wouldn't ever hold it against someone for not checking the game out because of that. In the event they still do though, I hope they find something in my work that helps them confront these things that makes them uncomfortable, so they can look at them through an objective lens. Nothing will ever change if all we do is look away. This completely blindsided me. After everything I heard about Selebus, with the post calling him pretentious, the years of dedication to make such an out there piece of media, and the amount of filters I had to get through to get to this point, I think I sort of built an image in my head of the kind of person that I assumed Selebus was. Some strange and weird creative genius that was crazy and be super defensive. But no, Selebus is an extremely competent and mature artist who knows exactly what he's doing. His answers were remarkably grounded and thoughtful. He was entirely direct about what this game is and what his intentions are with it. And obviously, I really appreciate that, but even more so, I'm just really surprised. So anyway, what do I think of his actual answer here? Well, I believe him. I really don't think that Selebus is sitting on his golden throne cackling about how he tricked people into funding his porn game. I think that he genuinely believes that depicting this kind of abuse graphically and not hiding it is useful for his artistic ends. It's also worth pointing out that he's putting his money where his mouth is. On the download page for Lessons in Love, you can find a link to his charity Ko-fi, in which he funds different charitable efforts every month and matches donations up to $500 out of his own pocket. That is serious money going to real people that actually need it. And regardless how you feel about the content, I think that reflects a genuine effort on his end. Like, he didn't have to do that. And in my experience with the text of the game, for the most part, it backs up his claims. Lessons in Love never stops beating you over the head with the fact that Sensei is a deplorable predator. Maya's warning back on day 3 was proven to be basically correct. All of the most terrifying things I encountered in the game escalated after I tried raising affection points with the characters, and it made what seemed like normal dating sim progression mechanics into what felt like something that was increasingly building towards something terrible, rather than titillating. Selebus's response made me feel a lot better about him, but also the game, in a way that's a lot harder to articulate. The best way I can put it is like this. Lessons in Love is a serious artistic project with real craft and passion behind it, made by someone who is actively trying to make the world a better place. He's making a work of art that, at least in the short time I've played it, punishes and implicates you for the bad choices you make. This is not a game that necessarily rewards you for acting like its main character, and yet it still has a lot of lolly content in it by the creator's own admission, with some of it being sold as premium rewards for supporters. According to Selebus, these scenes, among other aspects of the game, exist to basically drain the money out of people who are into that sort of content. Additionally, some members of the community claim that these bonus H scenes are actually full of jokes and meta commentary and are actually self-aware, along with not being canon. They exist as a reward for supporters, but they're not, according to the community, gross fan service sitting there uncritically. And like, I honestly think that's better, but better does not mean good, and it certainly doesn't mean acceptable. All this means that I think I understand the intent behind the decision. I keep coming back to something I said earlier when I first found that menu. Self-awareness and meta-commentary are great for making the player feel smart about knowing the thing on screen's bad, and they're equally great for giving the player permission to keep engaging anyway. If these paid scenes are self-aware, then that's the same mechanic the rest of the game runs on. And it works to the point that it was hard for me to tell where the critique ended and the content began. So the question then becomes, does it matter if the lolly DLC content is in on the joke, if the people who are buying it aren't? Selebus isn't stupid. He knows who's buying these scenes. He is weaponizing the worst of his audience to fund the game, like Pyrocynical making slop drama videos in order to fund his high production main channel videos. I can kind of respect the honesty of that in a weird way, but it doesn't mean that the content being for sale is some like inevitable necessary evil. Maybe it's naive of me, but I genuinely think this game is good enough that it could be fun without having to stoop to that level. That's where I land on it. It's better than I thought it was, but I'm still not okay with it. Then again, does that mean that I'm going to write off the whole project as a waste? Of course not. And that means I have to think about why I can justify that. In my head, it's almost like a tumor. If it wasn't there, it would be really easy to accept this game for what it was as a whole. It would be so much easier, really. But it's still there, and you don't grade cancer on a curve just because the rest of the body's healthy. But I suppose with this game, I shouldn't be expecting clean and comfortable answers. I'm not going to pretend that's rational, and I'm not going to blame anyone for not liking that answer, both mine and Selebus's. All I can say for sure is that I am choosing to engage with the game despite this. It's not some moral calculus that makes it okay. I just think there is some value in understanding what it does, even if there are parts that I find indefensible. Ugh, my brain feels like soup now. Okay, next question is a lot simpler. I wanted to know how accurate my read on the game was with how little of it I've seen. Here's my second question for Selebus. This is what I asked him. I stopped playing the game after I encountered the Room with Clocks Happy event on day 24. The reason I stopped here was because I came here to answer questions I had about this game, such as, why do people play Lessons in Love? What keeps people coming back? Why does it seem like no one is talking about the longest visual novel ever made? And at that point in the game, I felt like I understood what the game was doing, how it makes the player complicit in the horror it depicts on screen because of their own curiosity. Do you think that's an accurate read? And here's his response. I mentioned it briefly before, but I do think it's an accurate read to say the game is making people complicit because of their curiosity, or whatever it is that compelled them to move forward. And this is something that becomes true for even the protagonist, as there are points where the game sort of disregards what both he and the player wants, and forces you down a path that no one ever asked for in the first place. That's another reason you're told on so many occasions to just stop playing, that things will only get worse if you continue. And I think that's something that mirrors reality as well. In order to overcome anything, you must persist. So while turning off the game is an option, I like how people have to ask themselves if it's the right one. The TLDR is that, yes, there's a bunch of terrible shit in this game, and I want the player to feel bad while experiencing it. But I also want them to understand that, at the end of the day, that this is just a story, and that there are things like this happening in real life every day that we need to be willing to actually do something about. Because, as it stands, we're not. And that's why people like Sensei exist in the first place. This is a pretty crystal clear validation of my perspective on the game at this point in it, which really means a lot coming from the person that fucking made it. I think the thing that sticks out to me the most in his answer though is the idea that turning off the game, stopping, is an option, one that he intentionally wants players to ask themselves to consider. Which means that, to at least some degree, the game is designed so that the correct moral choice is to stop, to not play. Like, in my case, respecting Maya's wishes to fuck off and die, to not engage with something so problematic is always an option. In the same way that jumping off the edge of the map or running into enemies till your health at 0 is always an option. It's a fail state, because Selebus doesn't want you to look away. Which puts me in a weird position, because I stopped playing the game. I hit that fail state. Does that mean I made the right call? Did I win Lessons in Love? Or did I just reach my limit, get what I came here for, and realize that pushing further wouldn't serve any purpose I could justify? I really don't know. But what I do know is that what Selebus said rings true to reality. There is abuse and horrible things that happen every single day that we need to be aware of, that we need to do something about. And that reality doesn't offer the comfort of just getting to look away. And as someone who has been a victim of that kind of abuse in the past, I see where he's coming from. Regardless though, it's worth saying that Selebus did give me permission to share his perspective with all of you watching this video. So, thank you Selebus. I am really glad I was able to talk with him, even if it did somehow make everything more complicated in my head. I was never going to make a truly in-depth review of Lessons in Love. I only saw around 5% of what the game has to offer, and yet you see the length of this video. This game, even in the tiny sliver of it that I saw, may have impacted me greater than any game I'd ever played before. I came into this game looking at it like an anomaly, as something hidden out there in the world to be understood and cracked open, a secret lying awake and dormant for me to find it. It's why I had all these specific questions I wanted answers to going into it. And, well, I did get answers, just not the ones I was expecting. I did have a lot of expectations going into this game. I was looking for a meta puzzle, a crazy fourth wall breaking nightmare along the lines of, say, Kinetopet or Deltarune or, well, Doki Doki Literature Club. I think that's why, when I met Maya, that's why I decided I was going to rush her affection point specifically. Because she was the key for exactly what I was looking for. She had the meta knowledge, she broke the fourth wall, understood the nature of the reality of Lessons in Love. She could give me the lore and the answers that I was hunting for so desperately. But clearly, with something like Lessons in Love, getting what I want and what I expect is a fool's errand. I was so wrong about what I thought Lessons in Love was. I was wrong for coming into this game looking for the spooky fourth wall breaks and the crazy meta horror, and I should have known that going in. Because logically, you don't write 3 million words of a story that's just oh, I'm a spooky monster living in your computer, oh, I'm gonna kill you kind of bullshit. You only get to that insane word count by creating a rich tapestry of complex and compelling characters that keep people coming back to your game year after year, update after update. And so when I entered the room with clocks, I got what was coming to me. I was so insistent on seeing Maya and the other characters not as actual people, but obstacles in the way of me getting the lore that I was looking for, that the game said, so be it. And, well, didn't treat them like people. It treated them as puppets, to be torn apart and tormented beyond comprehension, and then laughed in my face when I was scared and upset by that. What right did I have to be scared? The game was basically giving me what I was asking for. I fell for a trap, certainly, but not the one I assumed I initially did. The game allowed me to fall into the impulse that Sensei had been doing this entire time. Not seeing these characters as people, just seeing them, Maya, as like a Wikipedia article that I just needed to unlock so I could justify the time I spent on this game, when that was never the point. The point of Lessons in Love, or at least a huge part of it, is to fall in love with these characters. Characters like Maya and Ami and Chika, to genuinely care about them as people, to root for them, to care about their relationships with one another, so that when inevitably their traumas are brought to light, when horrible things happen to them at the hands of Sensei's desires or the forces pulling the strings behind this world, it actually matters to you, and it really hurts. I skipped a step. I rushed through, in a sense, wanting the meta-horror payoff without actually putting in the work to understand the characters it was happening to. I didn't give them the time they needed, and the game made sure I got exactly what I deserved. But what's the alternative? Even if I had played the game correctly, was able to look past the freaky glitch moments and understand what the game was trying to do from the start, all that means that I'd be falling into a different trap. Lessons in Love creates all of these characters you're supposed to care about, yet contaminates every single moment with them with wrongness. Either with the obvious wrongness of the reminder that the game is glitching out and flashing a sinister smile at you, or the dulled background realization that you're playing as a predator, which isn't really comparable with Doki Doki Literature Club, the game I brought up at the start of this video precisely because of the way both games make use of meta-horror. Even if bringing it up was helpful when establishing a baseline to go off of, you can't really compare the games, at least not easily. Doki Doki Literature Club was a finite and controlled experience, whereas Lessons in Love was this all-consuming entity that just grabs you and never lets go, just like the guilt it makes you feel for your choices. It's something beyond a simple fourth-wall breaking fear, beyond the evil being inside the game that knows you're there, because it doesn't need that to make you feel like you're being watched and judged. But nonetheless, that's judgment for going through the options the game itself provides. And in that sense, the game's self-awareness does somewhat justify its content, because like I was concerned about, this game is, in a way, a more self-aware and meta way of providing a form of content that it's critiquing. Again, self-awareness is great for making the player feel smart for recognizing the thing on screen is bad, and giving them a justification for continued engagement. Selebus isn't stupid, he knows what he made. The DLC page is still there. There's a part of this player base that is getting exactly what they came here for, who can look past the artistry and the glitches and the filters because, well, there's no such thing as a perfect filter. Some people always find a way to slip through. So then, can a piece of art both provide and critique the very thing it's providing? Well, of course it can. And many would call that out as being incorrect or hypocritical. But for Lessons in Love, I think that the tension there is the point. And from what little I experienced in my 24 in-game days of playing Lessons in Love, that tension between critique and provision is not limited to the DLC menu. It's entangled within every single interaction and scene and moment of progression within the game. It won't stop you from doing what you're doing, but that certainly doesn't mean it'll let you forget it. And it can't let you forget, because in between the glitches and the jump scares, There are genuinely well-written characters with likable personalities and relatable backstories and normal interactions. The better the character writing is, the worse these glitches feel. You can't separate caring about these characters from exploiting them. They're the same progression system. And I think that's a huge part of why it seems like no one is talking about this game. I mean, it's also because it's an adult 18+ anime dating sim visual novel from an American indie dev with a fucked up premise and whatever the fuck happened to Maya and Ami. It doesn't exactly scream mainstream appeal. But more importantly, I think that a lot of people just wouldn't want to admit they played something like this and made the choices that they did. The community isn't really keeping this game underground purely out of gatekeeping, though that's certainly a factor. I think a lot of people just don't really know how to explain to a normal person why they're 300 hours into a game like this. The game makes you complicit, and complicity isn't something that most people want to broadcast. And there's also the fact that the game simply resists being talked about just thanks to the way it's designed. The content of the game, along with its massive length, makes it pretty much impossible to bring up casually. It's like, hey, have you heard of this really cool game that's over 3 million words where you play as a predatory teacher that's going to make you feel personally responsible for the traumatic psychological horror depicted on screen? It exists in this weird liminal space where the people who know the most about it are positioned to have the most trouble actually talking about it in the wild. And then, well, that leaves the game pretty much underground. And it's not like I'm expecting this video to, make the game go mainstream, because I think the game existing in this state is almost intentional. But regardless, there is still one question, the big question, that still needs to be answered. What does it mean to willingly walk into problematic and unethical content in search of greater meaning? I'm gonna be completely honest with you, when I initially proposed this question at the start of the video, I didn't think about it, at all. I put it there because it's kind of like just a smart person sounding question that I'd instinctively throw at the start of a video essay like this that people think I'm really smart. I didn't really think I was ever actually going to give it a proper answer in my head, but after playing this small part of Lessons in Love, well, I do have an answer, and I don't really like it. And by now it should be obvious. I think the answer is it means becoming complicit. I walked into this game fully knowing what it was from the start. It's a porn game. It sells skins and outfits and not safe for work scenes for these characters. The premise is obviously predatory and fucked up. And Maya warned me about exactly that. And I didn't listen because I wanted to find that greater meaning for myself. It's not exactly something unique to this game, mind you. That's how everyone interacts with transgressive art. Because we make the choice to engage with something that's uncomfortable, that we even disagree with, because we believe that there will be meaning to be found somewhere in that discomfort. But sometimes the meaning to be found is the discomfort. Maybe the point isn't what's at the bottom of the rabbit hole, but rather what it means that you were willing to go down it in the first place. I, in a sense, became the thing I was criticizing myself. I pursued Maya despite her wishes and justified it in my head as trying to understand more, to find the truth. And the truth was that I was pushing and pushing until everything fell apart. And in that moment, I became just like Sensei, like every other player who chose to open Maya's door. You can engage with horrific, fucked up, problematic content thoughtfully and still be changed by it. Your noble intentions of greater understanding and self-awareness do not fully shield you from becoming a part in it. That's why no one's talking about this game, I think. Because doing so is admitting that you played a fucked up game like Lessons in Love, that you're willing to engage with it, the lines that you're willing to cross in search of answers. I crossed those lines. I opened door number 5. And I can't unknow what I now know about myself after entering the room with clocks. I should probably end this video with an actual review of the game, right? I mean, you know how little I've seen of the game and all it has to offer and all, so just take this review with a grain of salt. Especially considering that I'm calling this game a masterpiece. Even if I don't want to, it would feel wrong not giving Lessons in Love its flowers. The writing, all in all, was extremely technically competent and did an amazing job at communicating to the player not only information, but emotions, and perfectly setting the stage and mood for any scene it throws at you. It's really solid in terms of structure, and it generally earns its moments where it gets all weird and verbose. Sometimes the writing is flowery and can feel a bit pretentious, but never in a way that doesn't feel earned and justified. And when the game is actively trying to be satirical and funny, it genuinely is. In terms of actually interacting with the game, the UI is simple, but it works. And the production value is scrappy, but effective. The characters are all pretty standard 3D anime models, and in the game's normal moments, you probably wouldn't even bat an eye at it. But when the game tries to be scary, when we're thrown into the happy events, it uses its foundation to its fullest extent. Selebus knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to the horror of this game, the corruption of these environments and characters, and it's fucking amazing. Obviously, the sexual moments can give a lot of tonal whiplash, but we all know that's intentional by now. I mean, everything really feels well integrated and intentional and meaningful, and when the game does go full denpa, it's the scariest shit I've witnessed in my entire life. So, am I going to keep playing the game? See more than 5%? Right now, no. I think I need to play some wholesome games for a week or two so I can emotionally recover from this. But I'll be back. Maybe it is a sunk cost thing, but fuck, I really want to see the deeper ends of this game and struggle to get through the puzzle in the ARG just to see how deep this rabbit hole truly goes. And who knows? Maybe I'll come back and make more videos about this game. It's not like there's any shortage of things to talk about with Lessons in Love. But not today. I was never going to make a full 100% in-depth deep dive into this game in a video, because truthfully, I don't think anyone can. Even the die-hard fans of this game acknowledge that they don't fully understand it, even after playing it for years and years. Lessons in Love is not bad art. It's not pure exploitation, and I do not think that Selebus is a bad person. This is a serious and valid artistic project made by someone who I think is genuinely trying to make the world a better place, backed by real ambition, skill, and the impact it's had on its players. I obviously won't say the game is for everyone, because it isn't, and none of this means I don't have my issues with it. I do not endorse the fact that this game sells lolly content. Fuck that. The sad reality is I can very easily see this game being enjoyed by total creeps who just got through the filter, who are funding the game for whatever nefarious purposes they have. And I could very well see the things in this game being re-traumatizing for some people. But what about you? Should you play Lessons in Love? I can't answer that for you. If you're over 18 and can handle the dark themes and heavy subject matter, then obviously I can't stop you. Maybe you can get something out of this game, maybe you won't. But in any case, I'm confident that this video will not be too much of a spoiler for you. After all, I did barely scratch the surface, if you remember. All I can say for certain is what this game did to me, and let you decide if that's something you want to experience. You know, the narrator told me at the very start of all of this that there were some things that they've accepted they will never truly understand. Like dust. How particles of dead skin and debris can glow so beautifully when hit by light at the perfect angle. How something invisible can be made visible. I thought that's what the point of Lessons in Love would be. Something hidden in plain sight, a disturbing premise that if you shined light on the right way, you would find something beautiful and meaningful. But you have to remember that dust is made of the dead and discarded, what we see as small and insignificant. And when you shine light on it, you're not creating something beautiful out of nothing, you're just making visible what was always there. That's what Lessons in Love is. It didn't create the darkness it harbors, it just held a light to something that was always there, something that many would be a lot more comfortable looking away from, something that might be better off left in the dark. I turned the light on myself. No one forced me to open Maya's door. I guess some things are so much prettier left unlit, aren't they? I hate Lessons in Love. I hate that it made me feel compelled to keep going even though I knew how wrong it was. I hate what it made me complicit in. I hate what happened to Maya. I hate that it sells DLC content that adds lolly content, whatever the fuck that means. I hate how conflicted my feelings are about it. But the thing that I hate the most about this game is that I can't just disregard it. I can't just throw my hands up and say it's an evil game for evil people made by an evil person. I can't say the game isn't exceptionally well made and intentional. I can't pretend it's all bad, all meaningless, all nothing. Not after what I experienced. I wish I could. I really, really wish I could. That would be so much easier. But I'd be lying to myself, to all of you, if I said that. But regardless, as I look back on my brief yet impactful time spent in the town of Kumonmi, there is one thing I believe I can say now with absolute certainty. Lessons in Love is the most disturbing visual novel ever made.
Open the curtains, lights on. Don't miss a moment of this experiment. Oh, the book is strange, like clockwork orange. Keep your eyes buttered till the end. Which year you going to be? Inside the mirror, do you see someone else in that body? Dance for me, 1 hand, 2 hand, 3 hand. Turn around, sit like a doggy till I finish my read. Cut it off, cut down your moves. All stubborn loyalty is gonna get you killed in a world built on convenient theories. Flaw the pop hits on TV. There's comfort in strings. If you're gonna control me, at least make it interesting theatrically. How does it feel to be free? Why don't you try yourself? The gate opened on me, so I leaped down, down, down I go. Tell myself I'm a tough girl. Down, down, down I go. I can never, ever, ever touch the soil. My heart goes right, my head goes left, and upon your bed. Sure, I'll be your marionette here, tug on my thread. Spread me open for Dolly, pink Snow White, artificial beauty. Maybe we're all cold machines, stuffed in the human skin of human sin, sold up by the book. And for me, think I am done with everything. Now I'm ready to leave. Dragging out 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. Connect our hands when you no longer can live on knowledge alone. You gave me strength, helpful curiosity. Maybe there are still happy answers left in my discovery. What's the color of the electric shape you see? And if you love me, could you love your everything too for me?
Wait. Coom on me? Like, coom on me? Oh, Fuck!